subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Stronger than Might Guy, who has opened the seventh gate. This strength is enough to tyrannize Kuroki Raiga. What a fast speed! Yuhi Kurenai's eyes widened as she watched Kamisato Tsukika move quickly and attack Kuroki Raiga madly. Like Hinata, she opened her mouth slightly in shock, unable to believe it. She even suspected that she had seen it wrong. It was not Kamisato Tsukika, but Might Guy, Hinata's classmate, a boy under 13 years old, beat up Kuroki Raiga at the sixth gate of 8 inner gates. These factors together made Yuhi Kurenai difficult to calm down and even a little absent-minded. Similarly, another person hiding in the rainstorm was also shocked by Kamisato Tsukika's speed and was absent-minded. We must kill him, and we can't let him leave here alive. Shafing's heart was cold, and he was determined to kill. He had just arrived not long ago, and when he saw the battle between Konoha and Kuroki Raiga, he thought it was a godsend opportunity. After these people were both injured, he could catch them all in one fell swoop. Unexpectedly, this weight produced such a terrifying genius. Konoha actually has such a genius. He has such a terrifying fighting ability at such a young age. Once he grows up, thinking of this, Shafon was horrified. Minepapui-sun. Got it. Chapter 43. Living Without a Home. With evil as wings bang, bang bang. Cough. Kirichu Raiga coughed up blood after flying backwards, but before he could adjust his body to deal with it, Kamisato Yuahua's attack came again. Under Kamisato Yuahua's violent attack, Kirichu Raiga had no room to fight back. At this moment, Kirichu Raiga once again felt the despair and powerlessness of more than 10 years ago. Puff! Another heavy blow. Kirichu Raiga spurted blood and his body was severely injured again. However, Kamisato Yuehua did not stop and took advantage of his illness to kill him. She rushed forward and stuck close to Kirichu Raiga, not giving him the opportunity to use his thunder sword and ninjutsu. This is the injury of a physical ninja. In a one-on-one situation, if an ordinary ninja is caught by a physical ninja and suppressed by a physical ninja, it will be difficult to organize a strong counterattack and can only be beaten passively. However, it does not mean death if you're close to him. As long as you are decisive enough and willing to pay the price, you can also find an opportunity to distance the two sides again. This is what happened to Kurizuchi Raiga. He chose to resist Kamisato Yuehua's attack and used that terrible force to quickly distance himself from Kamisato Yuehua. Of course, this also came at a price. Kamisato Yuehua's power was not light. Resisting Kamisato Yuehua's attack made Kurizuchi Raiga's body even worse. Every movement of the wound was tearing pain. No wonder Shiyin has been so calm. You are really something. This kid is so powerful. Why didn't you tell me? Looking at the back of the boy standing upright in the storm, Rihong spoke with a scolding tone, and her heart was finally put down. You can't blame me for this. After all, the senior didn't ask. Mao Shiyin smiled and spoke. She liked to see others being shocked by Kamisato Yuehua. If possible, she wanted to tell the whole world how talented Kamisato Yuehua was. After all, it can't be just a few of them who were hit so badly by Kamisato Yuehua. If they're going to be hit, everyone should be hit together. But Yuzuki Yugao can't do this, because Kamisato Yuehua's talent is too scary. If people from other ninja villages feel it, then the assassination of Kamisato Yuehua will probably be endless. This assassination will continue until Kamisato Yuehua grows up to the point that they can't assassinate her anymore. Yuhi Kurenai was speechless. How could she ask this? Who would ask a genin who just graduated from a ninja school whether he has the strength of an elite genin when they meet? One monster, he can open the sixth gate of 8 inner gates at such a young age. I really don't know how he practiced. Thinking of the practice of Might Guy who also practiced 8 inner gates, Yuhi Kurenai couldn't help but get goosebumps all over her body. Yuehua can good, so powerful. Hinata, who had closed her white eyes, couldn't help but speak. Although the Hyuga clan is a blood limit ninja, the Hyuga clan's means are mainly physical skills, so Hinata can better understand how strong Kamisato Yuehua's physical skills are. This made her admire Kamisato Yuehua in her heart. On the other side, after paying a heavy price and pulling away from Kamisato Yuehua, Kurochi Raiga stood up tremblingly, breathing heavily. He had a premonition that he would die here today. Just like more than 10 years ago, if it weren't for the fact that there were more people and Might Die was only one person, there would definitely be more than 4 people who died at that time. He would also die there, just like the others. And today, he faced this enemy who was as terrible as that guy back then alone. How could he win? How could he survive? Although when Ranmaru died, Kurochi Raiga had no intention of continuing to live. However, Ranmaru's revenge had not been avenged yet, and Kurochi Raiga didn't want to die so easily. Even if he died, he would drag someone down with him. Let Lei Ting hold a grand funeral for us. Kurochi Raiga's eyes were mad, and he had made the final decision. He knew very well that he would not be able to survive today no matter what. Let's die together. Roaring, Kurochi Raiga raised his 2 swords, completely ignoring Kamisato Tsukika, and rushed directly to Yuhi Kurenai below. This was the last counterattack, the madness before death. Kurochi Raiga chose to drag Yuhi Kurenai to be buried with him, because Ranmaru died in Yuhi Kurenai's hands. Of course, if Kamisato Tsukika came to stop him, it would be nothing. Kurochi Raiga could accept being able to drag Kamisato Tsukika to be buried with him. On Kurochi Raiga's Thunderblade, his last chakra was condensing, pulling the thunder in the sky. No, get out of the way. Yuhi Kurenai noticed Kurochi Raiga's thoughts and knew that Kurochi Raiga's target was herself. She pushed Hinata away and moved quickly in another direction. And Kamisato Tsukika naturally knew what Kurochi Raiga was planning, but he did not panic. On the contrary, he was unusually calm and just quickly formed a seal. Shadow Clone Technique. The next moment, a shadow clone of Kamisato Tsukika appeared and pounced on Kurochi Raiga. This shadow clone was not in the state of opening the 8 inner gates, but was just the strength of the ordinary 3rd gate. If it faced Kurochi Raiga in his prime, it would naturally not be his opponent. But this was a severely disabled Kurochi Raiga, a weak Kurochi Raiga, and a Kurochi Raiga with only his last breath left. So, it was enough to resist Kurochi Raiga. Oh! Seeing that he could not even die with others, Kurochi Raiga could not help but roar. But this was also the last roar of his life. Boom! The thunder covered the last madness. Several lightning bolts fell from the sky like a crazy giant snake, hitting Kurochi Raiga and Kamisato Tsukika, a shadow, cloned fiercely. Silver light burst out, and the lightning turned into a huge ball of light, dazzling and dazzling. When the ball of light became smaller and the light dimmed, the shadow clone of Kurochi Raiga and Kamisato Yuehua had disappeared, completely annihilated into smoke in the lightning. The S-level rebel ninja of Kirigakure, the Raidao of one of the 7 ninja swordsmen, the Kurochi Raiga, who had no place to live and evil as his wings, just dissipated with the power of thunder. For him, this may be a kind of relief and another kind of happiness, because in the Pure Land, he will meet his beloved Ranmaru again. Is this the feeling of being struck by lightning? It was too fast, I didn't feel it. Kamisato Yuehua muttered to himself, and the dissipated shadow clone gave him feedback on the feeling of being struck to death by lightning. But that moment was too fast, and he didn't feel anything at all. Thunder, after returning this time, I will first develop a few lightning-style ninjutsu without seals. It's too troublesome to make seals. Kamisato Yuehua muttered. Are you okay? Yuzuki Yugao jumped a few times and came to Kamisato Yuehua, looking at the dark pit in front of her with lingering fear. Yuhi Kurenai and Hinata also came quickly, also with a look of relief. If it weren't for Kamisato Yuehua, they would probably die here today. I'm fine. Shadow Clone was just killed by lightning. This is over. Let's meet up with Shino and Kiba. Kamiri Yuehua opened his mouth and activated soul perception, but immediately his face changed. Chapter 44, I hate being threatened the most as soon as she sensed the souls of Inazuka Kiba and Aburame Shino, Kamisato Yuehua knew that something had happened to the two. What happened? Seeing Kamisato Yuehua frowning, Yuzuki Yugao couldn't help but ask. Something may have happened to Kiba and Shino. They are now in the mine. Kamisato Yuehua spoke, looking at the mine in the distance, where the souls of Inuzuka Kiba and Aburame Shino were. This shouldn't be the case. After they left with the people from Osamu Kanzen, even if they were worried and turned back, they should be in a place where they could see this place, not in the mine. How could it be? Are there other ninjas? Yuhi Kurenai was shocked when she heard this, and she had a bad premonition in her heart. And Hinata reopened her Byakugan when she heard this. There are people there, ninjas, and they're dressed very similarly to Yohuakuen and the others. As soon as she opened her Byakugan, Hinata saw the hidden sand wind, but the mine was too far away from here, and she couldn't see the situation in the mine. Where? It seems that Umbu from other ninja villages. Kamiri Tsukika spoke, thinking quickly about what to do next. The best way is for him to use the spiritualization technique to sneak into the mine to investigate the situation, and if there is a chance, directly bring out Inuzuka Kiba and Aburame Shino inside. Kamiri Tsukika was about to speak when thinking about it. However, before he could say that he would go to investigate the situation in the mine first, Hinata spoke again. He found that we found him and is running towards the mine. Hearing this, Yuhi Kurenai couldn't help it and said, Hinata, follow him. Yes. Hinata nodded and quickly chased after the place where Sand Wind was. Yuhi Kurenai also quickly followed. Seeing this, Kamisato Tsukika and Yuzuki Yugao looked at each other and could only give up their plans and follow Yuhi Kurenai and Hinata. However, the situation in the mine was not clear after all, and Kamisato Tsukika didn't know what was inside, so it was too dangerous to rush in rashly. So after not feeling any prying eyes, Kamisato Tsukika separated a shadow clone to replace her body, and the body used the transformation technique to turn into a kunai. Ta-ta-ta-ta. The dense footsteps were clearly audible in the mine. Kamisato Tsukika and the other four came into the mine and continued to go deeper into the mine. As they went deeper, the passage inside became narrower and narrower. The passage from the entrance of the mine, which was 4 meters high and 3 meters wide, could only accommodate 2 people walking side by side. In front of them, Sandwind listened to the footsteps behind him, his face unchanged, but he took out a whistle and blew a few times. Suddenly, the sound of birdsong sounded in the mine. In a more spacious place, 3 Umbu members of Sunagakure were waiting inside. Beside them, there were Shino and Inuzuka Kiba, who were unconscious due to the illusion. They were unlucky and were captured alive by Sandwind and the other 4. But their luck was pretty good, because they were still alive and not tortured. Hearing the birdsong, 2 of the 3 Umbu came to Aburame Shino and Inuzuka Kiba, lifted them up with one hand to block them in front of them, and put kunai on their necks with the other hand. For the Umbu of Sunagakure, Aburame Shino and Inuzuka Kiba are perfect tools. If they are important, then with these 2 hostages, they will easily kill all the Konoha shinobi next. Even if these 2 people are not important, they could be used as a meat shield. Soon, Sunakase appeared in the 3 dark visions. He came to the 3 and breathed a sigh of relief, then turned and looked at the other side of the mine. There, Kamisato Tsukika and the other 4 had also arrived. Kana Shino, even though the firelight was dim, Kurenai still saw the unconscious Aburame Shino and Inuzuka Kiba at a glance, and judged that the 2 were under an illusion. Sunagakure Umbu, you attacked the Konoha shinobi. Are you trying to provoke a war? Yuzuki Yugao spoke sharply, having recognized the other party's identity. But Sunagakure sneered. I also want to ask what you Konoha means. Are these 2 little brats spying on us on our mission to collect information about Sunagakure Umbu? Sunagakure was the first to complain and directly made up a lie to question Yuzuki Yugao in return. Impossible, they absolutely can't do such a thing. Kurenai decisively refuted. Although they had only been together for 2 months, she knew the personalities of Inuzuka Kiba and Aburame Shino very well. You say it's impossible, so it's impossible. Sunagakure sneered. He naturally knew the facts, but so what? Okay, then what do you think? Suppressing the anger in her heart, Kurenai calmed down and spoke. You can never wake up a person who pretends to sleep. It is obvious that the other party is deliberately looking for trouble. There is no need to continue arguing. Simple. We will take the person away and let you Hokage go to explain to our Kazuka-sama. Sandakase said, pretending to leave with his subordinates. However, how could Yuhi Kurenai let them leave like this? She said coldly. I advise you to think clearly before making a decision. Think carefully about whether Sunagakure is ready to go to war with Konoha. Are you threatening me? Sandakase pretended to be gloomy when he heard it, but he immediately smiled sinisterly. What I hate most is being threatened, but what I like most is threatening others. I will count to 3. If you don't get out of the way, these 2 little brats will be in trouble. As he said, Sandakase took Inuzuka Kiba from an umbu, and the kunai in his hand pressed against Inuzuka Kiba's neck. You dare! What am I afraid of? Sandakase sneered, and his eyes swept across everyone, and finally stopped on Kamisato Tsukika. 3 Sagafu didn't wait for Kurenai to say anything else, and started counting directly to, okay, let's get out of the way. Kurenai finally compromised, and said, she signaled Kamisato Tsukika and the others to retreat. This place is too narrow, and it's not suitable for attacking at all, so we have to find a way to delay the opponent first. Sagafu smiled smugly when he heard it, which was what he wanted. This place is too narrow, and it's a little far from the entrance of the mine. If he attacks here, he may not be able to leave, although it's not a loss to exchange his life for Konoha's genius boy and 2 Jnin, who would choose to die if he can live. In this way, the group of people moved forward and backward, moving towards the entrance of the mine little by little. Not long after, they came to a position not far from the entrance of the mine. However, before everyone walked out of the mine, everyone realized that something was wrong. Kurenai, Hinata, Yuzuki Yugao, and the 3 umbu of Sunagakure. Their bodies were getting soft and losing strength. Chapter 45 Poison. This powerlessness came a little suddenly, but it was not without warning. In fact, their strength had already begun to fade away since they were deep in a mine just now. But the atmosphere was too tense before, and everyone was very depressed in that environment, so no one noticed it. And now, this feeling of powerlessness broke out. As for what caused it, the only thing that could make everyone fall victim so quietly was that thing. It's poison. Yuzuki Yugao held the wall with one hand and quickly took out the medicine from the ninja bag with the other hand and put it in her mouth. This is not an antidote, but this medicine has a certain resistance to almost any kind of poison. It was developed by Tsunade, the granddaughter of first Hokage Senju Hashirama, one of the Sannin of Konoha during the Second Ninja World War. However, before Yuzuki Yugao took the medicine into her mouth, the medicine in her hand was snatched away by Sandwind. At this time, Sandwind had thrown Inuzuka Kiba aside casually close to the mine. You only know it now? It's too late. After taking the medicine from Yuzuki Yugao, Sandwind spoke with a very proud tone. This poison was naturally the work of Sandy Wind. It was used when he entered the depths of the mine and joined his subordinates, and when Kurenai Yuhi and others just arrived. It was a gaseous poison. This poison is colorless, but not odorless. Under normal circumstances, it is easy to distinguish the smell of this poison. However, in the depths of the mine, under the cover of the strong smell, the poison used by Sandy Wind lost its smell, and everyone present was infected. Yes, everyone except Sandy Wind, including Sandy Wind's subordinates. They also felt weak and could not stand steadily. Only Sandy Wind himself was fine. He had taken the antidote after entering the mine, so there was no effect at all. I just came here to investigate the situation, but I didn't expect to have such a big harvest. Konoha's illusion, Jinin Kurenai Yuhi, the blood limit ninja of the Hyuga clan, and Konoha's new physical genius. As he said this, Sandy Wind became extremely proud. He glanced at Yuhi Kurenai and Yuzuki Yugao, who were lying on the ground helplessly, and a fiery desire flashed in his eyes. But Sunagakure suppressed this desire, and finally looked at Kamisato Tsukika who was also powerless with a hideous smile. God really favors Konoha, giving you really rich land and so many geniuses. It's really biased, but it doesn't matter. The dead genius is just a genius. He can't become a powerful person who gives people a headache. Little ghost, you are lucky to be born in a peaceful era, allowing you to spend more than 10 years in peace. But you are also unfortunate to meet me. Then, remember, the person who killed you is Sunagakure Umbu, second squad captain, Sunagakure. After Sunagakure finished speaking, he had already taken out a kunai in his hand. He was ready to use the kunai to understand Kamisato Tsukika's life. But Sunagakure didn't intend to get close to Kamisato Tsukika. Kamisato Tsukika hadn't said a word since she was poisoned. This was too calm, which made Kamisato Tsukika alert in her heart. So he planned to shoot Kamisato Yuehua to death with a kunai. No, with Hinata's weak voice, in the desperate and regretful eyes of Yuzuki Yugao and Yuhi Kurenai, Sunakase threw the kunai in his hand. The next moment, it seemed that Kamisato Yuehua was about to bleed to death. And at this moment, whether it was Hinata, Yuzuki Yugao, or Yuhi Kurenai, they all used all their strength to rush toward Kamisato Yuehua, and they wanted to use their bodies to block this fatal attack for Kamisato Yuehua. And Kamisato Yuehua saw that Sunakase was so cautious, and she knew in her heart that there was no better opportunity. So when Sunakase threw the kunai at Kamisato Yuehua also threw the kunai she had been holding in her hand. This seemed to be the last dying struggle, because even if Kamisato Yuehua's kunai blocked Sunakase's attack, it could not block the subsequent attacks. However, something strange happened. When the kunai in Kamisato Yuehua's hand was shot out, the kunai directly turned into Kamisato Yuehua, revealing Kamisato Yuehua's true body. After Kamisato Yuehua's true form appeared, she grabbed the kunai shot by Sandwind and rushed towards Sandwind without slowing down. This change was too shocking. No one would have thought that the kunai in Kamisato Yuehua's hand would become Kamisato Yuehua. Even Sandwind did not expect this. Puff! The sound of the sharp weapon sinking into the flesh and blood sounded, and the kunai in Kamisato Yuehua's hand successfully injured Sandwind. Yes, Sandwind did not die. He dodged this sudden attack, but this is normal. On the one hand, Sandwind was very alert because Kamisato Yuehua was always calm. On the other hand, Kamisato Yuehua did not open the 8 inner gates, and he was now in the state of opening the 3rd gate. As for why he did not open the 5th gate or the 6th gate of the 8 inner gates and killed Sandwind instantly, it was not that Kamisato Yuehua did not want to, but that he could not do it now. Kamisato Yuehua was also poisoned. Even though he was always in a hurry and had hidden his true form long ago, Kamisato Yuehua was still poisoned because the poison is really strong, and the space where they were just now was too small, causing everyone to inhale a lot of poison. And this poison had a great impact on Kamisato Tsukika's body, making him unable to open the other gates of the 8 inner gates, and his speed slowed down a lot. It was also because of this that Sandwind was not killed instantly by Kamisato Tsukika at such a close distance. But it doesn't matter, people can be poisoned, but Shadow Clone won't. Puff puff. Quickly killing the 3 Sunagakure Umbu members who were also poisoned and weak, Kamisato Tsukika's Shadow Clone hugged Aburame Shino and Hinata in one hand, and quickly sent the 2 to a place far away from Sandwind and Kamisato Tsukika's body. At this time, Sandwind and Kamisato Tsukika's body were confronting each other. He was in the depths of the mine, locking Yuhi Kurenai's head with one hand and holding a kunai with the other hand to Yuhi Kurenai's throat. Just now, after being stabbed by Kamisato Tsukika with a kunai, Sandy was very decisive and threw a few smoke bombs directly on the spot. When everyone's vision completely disappeared, he took a gamble and held Yuhi Kurenai hostage. He was very smart and did not hold Inuzuka Kiba, who was closer to him, hostage, because Sandy had a feeling in his heart that if his target was Inuzuka Kiba, he would lose everything. It turned out that he made the right bet. When Sandy threw the smoke bomb, Kamisato Tsukika's first reaction was that Sandy would use Inuzuka Kiba as a hostage again. The result was that after the smoke dissipated, Kamisato Tsukika's shadow clone rescued Aburame Shino and Hinata. Kamisato Tsukika's real body protected Inazuka Kiba, and Yuhi Kurenai fell in his Sandy's hand again. Seeing Kamisato Tsukika on the opposite side, Shafong couldn't help but burst into laughter. He made the right bet. This round, he still won. Even though the opponent was only a boy of 12 or 13, Shafong still felt extremely happy. How alert! He actually used Shadow Clone to pretend to be the real body from the beginning, and the real body turned into a kunai to hide. Shafong spoke, looking calm, but his back was already covered with cold sweat. Moreover, in the place where Yuhi Kurenai's body blocked from his chest to his lower abdomen, a long wound was bleeding at this time, and Shafong felt that his strength was losing. But you still successfully poisoned, and successfully hijacked Teacher Hong. Kamiri, Tsukika sighed, and he regretted it now. Regretted not carving the Flying Thunder God spell on Yuhi Kurenai. If Yuhi Kurenai had the Flying Thunder God spell he secretly carved on her like Yuzuki Yugao, then now, he could kill Shafong instantly. It can be said that Sanwin's luck was really good. At that time, he had two choices, Yuhi Kurenai and Yuzuki Yugao. The probability of choosing one of the two made him bet right. Yes, I'm the winner in the end, Sanwin said, dragging Yuhi Kurenai and began to retreat. Yuhi Kurenai had fainted temporarily. After all, she was poisoned, and now Sanwin strangled her neck. So it was normal for her to faint temporarily. Looking at Sanwin, who was retreating, Kamisato Yuehua had a bad premonition, and her whole body was tense, ready to react at any time. You are a genius of Konoha, a true genius. Reminding me of that guy. Sanwin spoke while retreating. He was in a very bad state now, and felt that his strength was draining away. Hatake Kakashi, you must have heard of this name, a 12-year-old genin. At that time, this news made Sunagakure nervous for a long time. I thought it was another Namikaze Minato. What a desperate thing. One Namikaze Minato has already made Sunagakure helpless. If there is one more, Sunagakure will never have the hope of defeating Konoha. But fortunately, there was a problem with Hatake Kakashi's growth. His final achievement was only Elite Genin Hatake Kakashi, not 5th Hokage Hatake Kakashi. Sunakaze was still talking, staring at Kamisato Yuehua. He was still gambling now. Sunakaze didn't believe that Kamisato Yuehua would not see his intention at this time. The depths of the mine were a dead end, and he walked into the dead end, and he must have hoped to bring the other party into the dead end and die together. Although Kamisato Yuehua might not be able to guess what means he would use to die together, she could definitely guess that it would be dangerous to follow him in. But what Sunakaze is betting on is that Kamisato Yuehua knows the danger and still takes the risk. Because Kurenai is in his hands, he bets that Kamisato Yuehua is a person who values companions. And like those former geniuses of Konoha, she will never give up any companion easily. Konoha's White Fang Hatake Sakumo, Yellow Flash Namikaze Minato, 12-year-old Genin Hatake Kakashi. They're all like this. You are different. You are very different from Hatake Kakashi. Being able to kill an elite Genin like Kuroki Raiga at your age, your talent is definitely more terrifying than Hatake Kakashi. Moreover, your talent is being exchanged quickly. If nothing unexpected happens, I'm afraid it won't take a few years for you to become a ninja like Kage. Sunakaze said. At this time, he was already some distance away from Kamisato Yuehua, but Kamisato Yuehua still didn't move. This made Sunakaze nervous. If Kamisato Yuehua didn't care about Kurenai's life or death, then he made a wrong bet and could only die with Kurenai. Kamisato Yuehua didn't know Shafing's specific situation at the moment. The light here was too weak, and it got darker the further inside he went. He couldn't see Shafing's face clearly. But Kamisato Yuehua guessed Sanwin's plan, so Kamisato Yuehua did not move or speak, just standing there quietly. At this time, any action or any word was superfluous. He could only stand there quietly and watch everything with a cold. I had to put the greatest psychological pressure on Sanwin. At the same time, Kamisato Yuehua was also thinking quickly about how to rescue Yuhi Kurenai safely. It's a pity that I can't go to the Pure Land with a genius ninja like you. Sand spoke again, and he planned to further stimulate Kamisato Tsukika. But it doesn't matter. I can go to the underworld with such a beautiful woman in my hand and be a pair of miserable Mandarin ducks. My life is not too bad. As he said, Sand showed a sinister smile. I have only two hobbies in my life. The first is poison, and the second is SX. I think you have also felt the beauty of poison, mysterious and magical. As for SX, I am not bad either, especially after I failed to make poison that time, but accidentally got this thing. Sand said, took out a small bottle. He flicked the bottle cap open with one hand and said in a very proud tone, "Do you know what this is? This is a wonderful thing. After eating it, you can enjoy the ultimate pleasure for several hours. Kamiri Tsukika. She is so beautiful that I can't help but be with her on the road to the underworld. Then, let's warm up her first." With a gloomy smile, Sand pinched open Shi Rihong's mouth, and with the other hand, poured the small pills in the bottle directly into Shi Rihong's mouth. Kamiri Tsukika. He still looked at everything in front of him coldly, and had no intention of taking action. Kamisato Tsukika didn't believe that Sandy would give up and die with him so easily. Sandy would definitely expose a flaw to attract him. As long as Sandy reveals a flaw and lets him get close to Kurenai, he can expose his Flying Thunder God Technique ability and leave the mine in an instant to a safe place. Sure enough, Sandy began to get anxious when he saw that Kamisato Tsukika still didn't move. He continued to retreat, facing Kamisato Tsukika. But at a certain moment, Sandy seemed to be tripped by something and fell backwards to the ground, and Kurenai's body also fell to the side. Opportunity. Kamisato Tsukika knew that the opportunity he was waiting for had appeared, and Sandy deliberately exposed a flaw. So, Kamisato Tsukika threw a kunai directly at Sandy. Whoosh! The kunai flew towards Sandy quickly, at a very fast speed, but Sandy still dodged it with a roll. He was very disappointed and thought he had lost the bet. That genius boy from Konoha didn't care about Kurenai's life or death at all, because if he cared, what came over just now would not be a kunai, but some kind of cover-type ninjutsu, or the real body of Kamisato Tsukika. So, it seems that this is the end. Sand was shot by Kamisato Tsukika's kunai, and his hope was pierced. He was ruthless and planned to die with Yuhi Kurenai. After all, she is also a Konoha's Genjutsu Jinin. It's not too bad to die with her. Thinking of this, Sand used his last resort without hesitation. It was a puppet, a very small puppet, not in the shape of a human, but a puppet in the shape of a flying bird. In addition to hiding some poison, this puppet has an ability that other puppets don't have. Explosion. Who said that puppets can't explode? Chapter 47 and Sunset read Kamisato Tsukika's kunai made Shafeng despair. He thought he had made a wrong bet. Kamisato Tsukika was not a person who cherished her companions and was willing to risk her life for them. And he himself had no chance of survival. The wound on his abdomen was very serious. He had lost too much vitality, which made him feel very tired and powerless. So, Shafeng decisively detonated his puppet to bury himself and Yuhi Kurenai in the mine. If he was lucky, he could make the entire mine collapse and bury Kamisato Tsukika here. That would be great, Shafeng thought to himself. However, at the moment he detonated the mine, Shafeng saw a familiar boy. He saw Kamisato Tsukika suddenly appear beside him, as if he had moved instantly. This made Shafeng's mind confused, but there was no time for him to come back to his senses. The puppet had been detonated, and the mine began to tremble. Moreover, Kamisato Tsukika and Yuhi Kurenai also disappeared from Shafeng's sight in an instant. Boom! Stones fell, mud and sand splashed, and the fire illuminated the mine, but was immediately buried in the collapsed orange soil. Shafeng died without any surprise. He was already seriously injured and had difficulty moving, let alone resisting the collapsed soil and ore. He was buried in the mine and died completely. Nothing. Mao Yuxian looked at the sealed mine in front of her and made a shrill sound. She dragged her weak body to the location of the mine and tried her best to dig out the mud and sand blocking the entrance. At this moment, Mao Yixian's mind was very panicked and confused. The appearance of Shenli Yuehua appeared in her mind. The little brother who made her suffer and proud was buried in this place. This made her unacceptable. Self-blame, fear, pain, grief. Mao Yixian's tears could not stop flowing from her eyes. She dug the soil with her bare hands fiercely. Her fingers were broken and blood flowed out. "Captain, I'm fine." A gentle voice sounded from behind, just like a ray of light shining into the dark abyss, just like the people in the dungeon saw the sun again. Mao Yixian turned her head and looked over, and Shenli Yuehua had come behind her. Looking at Mao Yixian with tears in her eyes, Shenli Yuehua squatted down and grabbed Mao Yixian's hand and placed it in her palm. The green light appeared, and Mao Yixian felt that her fingers were wrapped in warm water, which was very comfortable. Although I don't know what the main body is like now. Since my shadow clone is still alive, the main body must be fine. Shenli Yuehua spoke, not his main body, but the shadow clone that was separated before. Mao Yixian breathed a sigh of relief when she heard this. "You guy, you really make me worry." After saying that, Mao Yixian's face changed again, because Shenli Yuehua and Yuhi Hong might still be trapped in the mine. "Don't worry. There are no enemies here. It doesn't matter if you are trapped here. Just wait for the rescue of the village." The shadow clone of Kamisato Yuehua saw the worry of Yuzuki Yugao and comforted her. Anyway, he was not worried at all. Although he didn't know where the original body was now and what it was doing as a shadow clone, didn't he know what he could do? There was no need to think about it. The original body must have left with the Flying Thunder God technique and was very safe. I just don't know how Yuhi Kurenai is doing. The shadow clone of Kamisato Yuehua thought. Kamisato Yuehua and Yuhi Kurenai were naturally fine. At the last moment, Kamisato Yuehua took Yuhi Kurenai and left the mine using the Flying Thunder God technique. At this time, behind a big tree in the grove outside the Oxalis Gold Mountain, Kamisato Yuehua held Yuhi Hong and breathed a sigh of relief. This is where they explored the information inside the Oxalis Gold Mountain before. Kamisato Yuehua casually placed a Flying Thunder God Kanai here. Just now, after realizing the purpose of Sandwind, Kamisato Yuehua brought Yuhi Hong here directly away from the mine. After arriving here, Kamisato Yuehua directly used the Spiritualization Technique to quickly go to the mine to check on the situation of other people, and came back immediately after confirming that everyone was fine. I didn't expect that guy to be so crazy. I thought he was going to use some powerful poison, but I didn't expect it to directly cause the mine to collapse. Kamisato Yuehua was still in shock. In that situation, just now, if he didn't have the Flying Thunder God technique, there would be no way, and Yuhi Hong could only be buried with Sandwind. "Teacher Hong, are you okay?" Listening to Yuhi Hong's rapid breathing, Kamisato Yuehua looked at Yuhi Hong in his arms and had a bad premonition. At this time, Yuhi Kurenai's face was flushed, her eyes were blurred, and her state was a little wrong. "Yuewa, thank you for saving me. Yuhi Kurenai spoke hesitantly. Her voice was a little suppressed. She seemed to be very uncomfortable now. But why she was so uncomfortable, Yuhi Kurenai didn't know. She woke up when Shafeng fell, but after waking up, Yuhi Kurenai hadn't figured out what was going on at the time and saw Kamisato Yuehua suddenly appear beside her. And then she was hugged by Kamisato Yuehua and appeared here the next moment. "As a Konoha shinobi, this is what I should do." Kamiri Yuehua spoke, but he was a little embarrassed for a while, because Yuhi Kurenai moved restlessly in his arms, and Yuhi Kurenai's body was very hot. Coupled with Yuhi Kurenai's current mouth-watering appearance and the good things that Shafeng said in the mine, warm up, this, something big is going to happen. So what should he do? "Teacher Hong, let's leave here first." Before Kamisato Yuehua finished speaking, Yuhi Kurenai had already wrapped her hand around his neck and pressed his head down. Feeling the warmth of his lips, Kamisato Yuehua was dumbfounded. He widened his eyes and was at a loss for a moment. But before Kamisato Yuehua could come to his senses, Yuhi Kurenai didn't know where the strength came from and turned over and pressed Kamisato Yuehua down. The two of them were close together, and the hot breath was burning. In this way, a boy over 12 years old became a man in a sense. Yuhi Kurenai also made Kamisato Uehwa deeply feel that the passion was like fire and the tenderness was like water. Similarly, Kamisato Uehwa also felt the happiness that Sanwin said. The innocent boy encountered a terrible battle, and the boy almost couldn't hold on. It was so terrible that when the battle was over, Kamisato Uehwa stood up with the help of a tree. However, he won in the end, because a certain enemy who was also on the battlefield for the first time could no longer get up at this time. Chapter 48, It's So Hard. Unlike Kamisato Uehwa and Yuhi Kurenai's ultimate enjoyment, the people in the mine were anxious and tormented at this time. It's all our fault. If we hadn't been caught, Teacher Hong and Uehwa wouldn't have been trapped inside, and their whereabouts would be unknown. Inuzuka Kiba spoke with annoyance and guilt. Their illusions had been solved long ago, and the poison on their bodies had lost its effect after more than 2 hours. And because the poison used by Sandwind on them only made people sore and weak, and there was no other harm, so now several people have recovered. No one knew that such a thing would happen. And don't worry, since the main body and Yuhi Kurenai disappear together, the two of them will definitely be fine. Kamisato Uehwa's shadow clone spoke to comfort. According to Hinata's observation with his white eyes, only Sandwind's strength did not have the whereabouts of Kamisato Uehwa and Yuhi Kurenai, and the two seemed to have disappeared out of thin air. This made Kamisato Uehwa's shadow clone a little confused. Of course, he was not confused about the disappearance of the main body and Yuhi Kurenai. Without a doubt, the main body must have escaped with Kurenai Yuhi using the Flying Thunder God technique. Shadow clone Kamisato Tsukika was puzzled as to why the main body had not appeared after such a long time. Could it be that the main body was also seriously injured? Moreover, if even the main body needed such a long time to be treated, the main body's condition was probably really not optimistic. Shadow clone analyzed inwardly. At that time in the mine, he did not see Sunake's feeding medicine to Kurenai Yuhi, but only heard some of Sunake's words intermittently, but they were only fragments, and the complete information could not be inferred. Well, believe Wu, he will definitely be fine. Looking at the depressed teammate, Yuzuki Yugao also spoke to comfort them. But the worry in her eyes could not be concealed after all. So Yuzuki Yugao's comfort did not have any effect, and the few people continued to remain silent. Until another 10 minutes later, Akamaru suddenly shouted excitedly, and Aburame Shino also raised his head. Hearing Akamaru's shout, Inuzuka Kiba's eyes lit up. Teacher Hong and Uehwa have appeared. He spoke happily. Akamaru just told him that he smelled the breath of Yuhi Kurenai and Kamisato Uehwa. It seems that there is nothing serious. Aburame Shino also spoke, his tone trembling slightly, showing his extraordinary inner world. Hinata immediately opened his Byakugan to look for Kamisato Uehwa and Yuhi Kurenai. I told you it will be fine. Kamisato Uehwa's shadow clone stood up and spoke. The situation was much better than he thought. Soon, Kamisato Uehwa's real body and Yuhi Kurenai came to the mine. Teacher Hong, Uehwa-kun, Wu. Several different names sounded at the same time, with obvious happiness and joy in their tone. Okay, I'll go back first. Kamisato Uehwa's shadow clone looked at Kamisato Uehwa's real body and spoke, and then took the initiative to contact himself and disappeared from the spot. I'm sorry for worrying everyone. Kamisato Uehwa spoke, and he was also very happy to see everyone's happy faces. After all, being able to get the care of others is a happy thing in itself. It seems that you have spent a lot of effort to come back safely, but it's great to be able to come back. Looking at the messy clothes of Yuhi Kurenai and Kamisato Uehwa, covered with dirt and grass ash, and the slight bloodstains on Yuhi Kurenai's clothes, Yuzuki Yugao spoke, but she felt relieved in her heart and relaxed. However, her words made Kamisato Uehwa and Yuhi Kurenai tense up, especially Yuhi Kurenai, whose face flushed. The reason why their clothes were like this, wasn't it because of the trouble in the grove? Well, it really took a lot of effort. My legs were weak after escaping. Kamisato Uehwa coughed dryly, and then answered seriously. This made Yuhi Kurenai's face even redder, and she couldn't help but think of some pictures in her mind, especially when she thought of the picture of someone putting his hand there to help her heal after the end. She wanted to cover Kamisato Yuehua's mouth immediately and find a mine to crawl into. It's so embarrassing. How could I do such a thing? Yuhi Kurenai wailed in her heart, but she could only pretend to be calm on the surface. It was embarrassing enough to do that to a boy who was more than 12 years old. If this matter was known by others, she would not live and would die on the spot. It seems that it is really hard work. Even with your physical strength, you feel weak in the legs. You didn't dig a hole and crawl out, did you? Hearing Kamisato Tsukika say that her legs were weak, Mayushi Yin became curious. Others don't know how strong Kamisato Tsukika is, but Mayushi Yin doesn't know. It's no problem to crush 5 or 10 of her. Digging a hole. Kamiri Tsukika's face was weird. That's it. However, Yuhi Kurenai didn't wait for Kamisato Tsukika to say anything and interrupted her. The blush on her face became more. She must not let the two people continue talking. Who knows what kind of tiger and wolf words these two people who are talking nonsense will say in the end. The mission is over. We should leave here. Yuhi Kurenai quickly calmed herself down. She was afraid that she would be discovered if she was too abnormal. I'll let Shadow Clone deal with the body of Kirichu Raiga here, Kamiri Tsukika said, and separated a Shadow Clone. The bodies of Kirichu Raiga and Ramaru are still outside, and they must be dealt with. After all, Ramaru's eyes. After Kamisato Tsukika's Shadow Clone left the mine, the others did not stay and left, heading towards the Osamu Golden Mountain. Each of them was in a mess at this time, especially Yuzuki Yugao, Hinata, Kamisato Tsukika, and Yuhi Kurenai. The heavy rain before made them soaked. But compared to Yuzuki Yugao and Hinata, they were much better. They just fell on the ground in the mine. Although they were also stained with a lot of mud, they just looked embarrassed. Kamisato Tsukika and Yuhi Kurenai were in a mess. The two of them were struggling in the grove. Not to mention their clothes, there were some scratches on their hands and legs. In the eyes of Yuzuki Yugao and others, these scratches were understood as those caused when they escaped, and no one would suspect anything. Osamu Golden Mountain. After the arrival of the few people, the people here fell into a joyful mood. Because Kamisato Tsukika and others' arrival meant that the Black Autumn family was finished. And the Black Autumn family was finished, which meant that the Osamu Golden Mountain was saved. They will return to the peaceful and harmonious life they had before and no longer have to worry or be bullied. So Kamisato Yuehua and his group received a very grand reception. It was during this process that the people of Osamu Kanzen told Kamisato Yuehua and the others a sad story. The people who escaped back that day met the 4 people of Sunakes, and Aisuke was killed by Sunakes because he wanted to run back to report to Inazuka Kiba and Aburame Shino. This made Kiba and Shino a little melancholy and mixed. After spending a night like this, everyone packed up the next day and said goodbye to the village and set off for Konoha. The mission of Osamu Kanzen was over. Chapter 49, The Future of Konoha, depends on you. The group returned to Konoha safely, and there were no accidents along the way. On the way back, they also met Ishida Ishizawa and Hisashi Yamai, who had rushed back from Konoha. When they returned to Konoha, the 4 members of Team 8 all breathed a sigh of relief and felt relaxed, especially Hinata, Kiba, and Shino. It was their first time out of the village, and they didn't expect to encounter the C-level mission becoming an S-level mission. They deeply experienced the feelings of Naruto Sasuke and Sakura. Let's go, hand in the mission. Yuhi Kurenai spoke in a relaxed tone, and her face had completely recovered. Of course, this was also because Kamisato Tsukika was not here. The 4 members of Team 6 separated from them outside the village and went back first. Otherwise, with Kamisato Tsukika there, Yuhi Kurenai always felt very uncomfortable. Even if she concealed this discomfort well, it was still noticed by the careful Hinata. Because during the return to the village, Kurenai Yuhi and Kamisato Tsukika had too little communication, and Hinata also found that Kurenai Yuhi never looked into Kamisato Tsukika's eyes. This made Hinata confused and a little confused. Hokage's office. When Kurenai Yuhi and the others stepped into Konoha, Kamisato Tsukika and the other four who had gone ahead had already arrived at the Hokage's office. After listening to the reports of Yuzuki Yugao and Kamisato Tsukika, Sarutobi Hiruzen was still in shock and was terrified. He didn't expect that a simple C-level mission would turn into an S-level mission involving elite Genin. And this mission was really dangerous. Team 8, Kamisato Tsukika, Yuzuki Yugao, and the other 6 were almost wiped out. This is an elite Genin plus an Umbu Genin plus 3 heirs of the great ninja clan. If anything happens to these people, it will be a huge loss to Konoha. And most importantly, Kamisato Tsukika almost got into trouble this time. Sunagekure Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes flashed coldly under the brim of the Hokage's hat, and anger appeared in his heart for the first time in a long time. However, he still suppressed this emotion. Thank you for your hard work. After this mission, you could take a rest for a while. Sarutobi Hiruzen spoke to the 4 people and was not going to arrange them to carry out the mission again. Thank you, Hokage-sama. The 4 thanked him and prepared to leave. But when they were about to leave, Sarutobi Hiruzen spoke again and asked Kamisato Uehua to stay alone. After Yuzuki Yugao and others left, Sarutobi Hiruzen spoke to Kamisato Uehua. Uehua boy, come with me to a place. After saying that, he stood up and left the Hokage's office. Kamisato Uehua followed silently. The 2 of them came to an underground dark room, which was full of seals. Sarutobi Hiruzen used 3 seals to break the seals before entering. After entering the dark room, Kamisato Uehua saw rows of shelves filled with scrolls. Sarutobi Hiruzen came to one of the shelves and picked up the scroll on it, while speaking to Kamisato Tsukika. I think you must be tired of hearing the story of the 4th Hokage, so I won't repeat it too much. This is the technique that the 4th generation practiced back then, and it is also the technique that made him known as the Yellow Flash. It was created by the 2nd Hokage, Senju Tobarama, called the Flying Thunder God Technique. I don't know if you have the talent to practice the Flying Thunder God Technique, because this technique cannot be learned by having a strong learning ability. It requires a very special talent, and I hope you have it. This mission is very dangerous. Although the people you meet are not a threat to you, you are in danger because of the safety of your companions, but you almost died there after all. If you can learn the Flying Thunder God Technique, I believe that if you encounter this situation again, you will be able to solve it better. Yuka, the ninja world has been peaceful for too long, and some ninja villages may have been unable to bear the loneliness. No one knows how long peace will last in the future. But no matter when the war breaks out in the future, I hope you can lead Konoha and let Konoha return to peace. Sarutobi Hiruzen spoke to Kamisato Uehua very seriously and handed the Flying Thunder God Technique to Kamisato Uehua. He said this very seriously, and even felt like telling Kamisato Uehua that he would be the future Hokage. This was a full trust and ultimate optimism. To be honest, these words shocked Kamisato Uehua herself. He could understand that Sarutobi Hiruzen gave him the Flying Thunder God Technique, but Kamisato Uehua was a little shocked when he said such a clear statement. He didn't expect that Sarutobi Hiruzen would be so optimistic about him. But if you think about it carefully, it seems understandable. After all, after returning from the mission in Wave Country, Sarutobi Hiruzen began to teach Kamisato Tsukika some political tactics that ordinary ninjas don't need. This is obviously to train Kamisato Tsukika as a high-level successor. It may be Hokage, or it may be an advisor, elder, or Genin class leader. And now, this explicit statement is just to determine this high-level position. The reason why it was determined so quickly, Kamisato Tsukika guessed that his way of handling things in this mission was very recognized by Sarutobi Hiruzen. Whether it was insisting on going to the Osamu Gold Mountain with Team 8 at the beginning, or using the Black Hoe Raiga to train the village's ninjas, and fighting wits and courage with Sandwind, the spirit of not abandoning or giving up companions are all the will of fire that Sarutobi Hiruzen wants. Coupled with Kamisato Tsukika's growth rate and his terrifying talent, It is not surprising that he was able to impress Sarutobi Hiruzen and let Sarutobi Hiruzen select him as a candidate for Hokage. Of course, explicit indication is one thing, and whether Kamisato Tsukika can become Hokage in the end is another. A candidate is a candidate after all. Once Kamisato Tsukika's performance is not satisfactory in the future, or there is someone more suitable for the Hokage than him, he will still be replaced by Sarutobi Hiruzen without hesitation. Just like Orochimaru back then, didn't Sarutobi Hiruzen also train Orochimaru as the fourth Hokage? But when Namake's Minato, who is better and more suitable for the Hokage, appeared, didn't Sarutobi Hiruzen still decide to let Namake's Minato become the fourth Hokage? Third generation master, I thank you for your trust. Kamisato Uehua will devote all my energy to Konoha until my death. Kamisato Uehua acted touched and excited and respectfully took the Flying Thunder God scroll from Sarutobi Hiruzen's hand. Although he already knew the Flying Thunder God technique and was very proficient in it, to the point where he was not inferior to the second Hokage, Senju Tobirama, and the fourth Hokage Namake's Minato. But this does not mean that the scroll in his hand is useless to Kamisato Uehua. This is different from the sealed book, which only records the content of the Flying Thunder God technique. This scroll also records the experience of the second Hokage, Senju Tobirama, in creating and practicing the Flying Thunder God technique, and the fourth Hokage Namake's Minato's practice experience of the Flying Thunder God technique. Chapter 50. Encounter under the moonlight after leaving the dark room. Kamisato Uehua returned to her hut. After opening the scroll in her hand, Kamisato Uehua began to indulge in it and studied it seriously. Speaking of it, Kamisato Uehua has been studying Flying Thunder God technique for some time. However, because it involves time and space, it takes a lot of time to study Flying Thunder God technique, and Kamisato Uehua has too many things to study, so there is less time allocated to the study of Flying Thunder God technique. So the progress is not great. So the scroll given to him by Sarutobi Hiruzen is very helpful to Kamisato Uehua, which can save Kamisato Uehua a lot of time. Of course, Flying Thunder God technique is a time and space ninjutsu, after all. If you want to make further progress in the understanding and research of Flying Thunder God technique in the second generation, fourth generation, it is not something that can be done in 1 or 2 days. A day passed quickly in Kamisato Uehua's obsession, and it was night in a blink of an eye. Lying on her bed, Kamisato Uehua rarely deduced anything. The image of Yuhi Kurenai kept appearing in his mind. It was fine during the day, as Kamisato Uehua was fully focused on studying the Flying Thunder God technique and had no time to think about anything else. But when it was night, as soon as he lay down, his thoughts became chaotic. After all, he was a young man, full of blood and energy, and he had just tasted the forbidden fruit. How could he resist it? This made Kamisato Uehua smile bitterly. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't sleep at all. He got up and planned to go out for a walk to relax. He opened the door. It was already past 11 o'clock in the evening. The birds around were already asleep, and the world seemed particularly quiet. He looked up at the sky, and a silver moon was hanging high, like a white jade plate. Kamisato Uehua walked out of the door and walked aimlessly along his own path, not caring where he went. After a long time, perhaps with the wind, Kamisato Uehua came to the highest point of the village, the location of Hokage Rock. From here, you can overlook the entire Konoha. If Kamisato Uehua had come here 3 hours earlier, he would have seen a brightly lit world with thousands of lights and beautiful people. But it was almost midnight, and most people in Konoha had fallen asleep. Only rows of streetlights and a few restaurants were still on. Sitting on the head of the first Hokage Senju Tobirama rock statue, Kamisato Uehua let the breeze blow his hair and clothes. He looked at the moon in the sky and thought of his previous life. May people live long and share the beauty of the moon. Although it is not the same moon, I hope that those who cared about him and the people he cared about in his previous life can have a good life. At this moment, Kamisato Uehua felt a little lonely. But soon, Kamisato Uehua turned his head and heard footsteps in the distance. This made Kamisato Uehua wonder who would have nothing to do at this time and come to Hokage Rock. and the footsteps were so messy. Thinking inwardly, Kamisato Yuawa's body disappeared from the spot, and the next moment he appeared in a hidden place behind the Hokage rock. There's also his flying Thunder God spell here, which was left by Kamisato Yuewa before. Leaving the flying Thunder God spell here allows Kamisato Yuewa to reach the highest point to observe the situation of the entire Konoha at the first time, no matter where she is in Konoha. How could it be her? Looking at the person with a messy footsteps, Kamisato Yuewa showed a surprised expression, because that person wasn't it Yuhi Kurenai who made him unable to sleep and came here to blow the cold wind? Didn't she have a dinner with teammate? It's over? Why did she come here instead of going home after it's over? There were many doubts in her heart, and Kamisato Yuewa was tangled in her heart. Should he go out and meet Yuhi Kurenai? After thinking about it, although she was very tempted, Kamisato Yuewa still gave up the plan to meet. It was too embarrassing. After all, something like that happened between the two. Thinking about it, some images appeared in Kamisato Yuewa's mind again, and he quickly shook his head to dispel those images. Young people, blood is not yet settled. Be careful of SX. Keeping reminding himself in his heart, Kamisato Yuewa planned to use Flying Thunder God to leave directly. But he stopped immediately, because Kamisato Yuewa saw 2 tear marks on Yuhi Kurenai's face under the light. This woman cried. This made Kamisato Yuewa a little at a loss. He didn't know why, whether it was because of himself, although it was likely. After all, from Yuhi Kurenai's point of view, she kept her virginity for 27 years, but she gave it to Kamisato Yuewa in a confused way. The key is that Kamisato Yuewa is still a little brother who is 15 years younger than her. How could she accept this, especially when she was just mentally prepared, planning to talk about marriage, and preparing to try to accept Sarutobi as Suma? Such a thing happened. How could this not affect her? Because she was traveling with Kamisato Tsukika before, and the people from Team 8 and Team 6 were there, Kurenai had no courage to face this matter. She was always tense and depressed. Until today, after bringing her disciples back to Konoha safely and having dinner with them, Kurenai finally relaxed. However, it was because she relaxed that the things she had deliberately avoided came to her mind, which made Kurenai buy some sake after the show and choose to be alone. That's why the two met on Hokage Rock. When Kurenai came here, her suppressed emotions also broke out completely. She couldn't help crying because of the grievance, sadness, and shyness in her heart. Kamisato Tsukika didn't know Kurenai's mental journey. He just stood quietly in the dark and looked at Kurenai a little at a loss. In this way, Kurenai sat alone under the street light, drinking and crying, and Kamisato Tsukika watched quietly not far from Kurenai for a long time, until Kurenai finished the wine in her hand. After drinking, Yuhi Hong sat for a long time. When she stood up, it was already past 2 in the morning. However, as soon as she stood up, Yuhi Hong stumbled and fell on the grass next to her. Obviously, she was drunk. This made Shinli Yuehua feel a little nervous. He resisted the urge to help Yuhi Hong up and sighed inwardly. Although he had never encountered such a situation, if Yuhi Hong was really like this because of him, then it would be inappropriate for him to appear now. But you can't just leave it alone. Let Yuhi Hong lie here all night? Shinli Yuehua felt that he couldn't do it. Go out? Don't go out? Shinli Yuehua began to struggle wildly. However, after a while, Shinli Yuehua still walked out of the darkness and walked towards Yuhi Hong. Because Yuhi Hong had not gotten up since she fell, and even stopped moving, Shinli Yuehua felt a little uneasy. If Yuhi Hong got into trouble because of him, he would be guilty. However, what Kamisato Tsukika didn't know was that it was actually normal for Kurenai to lie still. Anyone who has been drunk knows that when one's body is out of control and one's consciousness starts to blur and one wants to sleep, the first thing one wants to do is to find a place to lie still. Kurenai is also a human being, and she does this when she's drunk. But Kurenai is not an ordinary person. She's a ninja, and the ninja's instinct makes her try to stay conscious even when she's drunk and doesn't want to move. So, when Kamisato Tsukika appeared, Kurenai was actually conscious and still quite sober. Chapter 51, a wonderful feeling because she was conscious After Kamisato Tsukika appeared, Kurenai heard Kamisato Tsukika's footsteps. This made Kurenai alert. Even though she was in Konoha, the safest place for Konoha shinobi, her ninja instinct still made her ready to attack at any time. But Kurenai overestimated her control over her body when she was drunk. Her body was already difficult to control, and now she couldn't even move. Really? Why did you come to Hokage Rock to drink so late at night? Hearing the locals' low complaints and the familiar voice, Kurenai knew who the person was. This made her panic in her heart, but she could only pretend that she knew nothing. Kamisato Tsukika came to Kurenai and squatted down, looking at the delicate woman on the ground, feeling angry and funny in her heart. After he came out, he found that Kurenai was still conscious and fine. But he had already come out, which attracted Kurenai's attention, so he could only pretend that he didn't know. After lifting Kurenai up and carrying her on his back, Kamisato Uehua could feel that Kurenai's body had become a little stiff. This made the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Flying Thunder God Technique. The next moment, Kamisato Uehua carried Kurenai back to his cabin. Putting Kurenai on the bed, Kamisato Uehua looked at Kurenai pretending to sleep and smiled evilly. She looks quite drunk, so should I give her a bath? After speaking in a pretentious manner, Kamisato Uehua saw that Kurenai's face had turned red. But she still didn't open her eyes. Her body was tense, and no one knew what she was thinking at the moment. After satisfying his evil taste, Kamisato Uehua was satisfied. Forget it. A gentleman doesn't take advantage of others' misfortunes, so it's better not to do that. Gently covering Kurenai with the quilt, Kamisato Uehua felt that her body was a little hot, especially in her lower abdomen, as she looked at her delicate face close at hand. Originally, I couldn't sleep today because I was thinking about that kind of thing. Now that the beauty is in front of me and I can do whatever I want, it's too tempting. But Kamisato Uehua still suppressed the heat in his heart and the restlessness of his body. He just kissed Yuhi Hong on the forehead wantonly. Good night. After saying that, Kamisato Uehua walked out of the room, sat on the roof, and stared at the moon in the sky in a daze. This moon is so fragrant. Ah, so round. In the wooden house, Yuhi Hong opened her eyes after Kamisato Uehua left. Her face was flushed and her heart was pounding. It's so embarrassing. She was so shy that she couldn't express it in words. Yuhi Hong felt complicated, and she was grateful, happy, disappointed, and uncomfortable. All kinds of emotions intertwined, but her clear consciousness began to blur, and she fell asleep soon. The moon rises and sets, and the stars retreat. A new day comes again. After sitting on a roof for a day, Kamisato Uehua was still struggling whether to go down and make breakfast for Yuhi Kurenai, but she heard a noise from inside the house. Yuhi Kurenai had woken up. After noticing that Yuhi Kurenai had woken up, Kamisato Uehua quickly buried her head and pretended to be asleep. Inside the house, Yuhi Kurenai, who had just woken up, stood up subconsciously and took a defensive posture when she saw the unfamiliar environment. But she immediately relaxed and remembered why she was here. After recalling, Yuhi Hong's face turned red, and she felt so ashamed. Quietly opening the door, Yuhi Hong saw that there was no figure of Kamisato Uehua outside and quickly jumped onto the roof, ready to leave while Kamisato Uehua was not there. However, when she arrived at the roof, Yuhi Hong was frightened and motionless. She looked at the boy who was curled up on the roof and hugged her and was still sleeping, and her heart was complicated. Did you sit on the roof all night because of me? Yuhi Hong looked at Kamisato Uehua, feeling guilty, but also had an indescribable happy or happiness. Thank you, she said in a low voice, and then jumped away again. Although she had a strange feeling in her heart, Yuhi Hong didn't dare to face Kamisato Uehua alone. At least she didn't dare yet. So while Kamisato Uehua was still awake, Yuhi Hong quickly ran away. After confirming that Yuhi Hong had left, Kamisato Uehua raised her head and breathed a sigh of relief. Although the man did not suffer any loss in what happened, it still feels awkward. Besides, love is not something that can be achieved overnight. Take your time, no rush. After jumping down from the roof, Kamisato Tsukika stretched and then went into the house to continue studying his technique. But it was not the Flying Thunder God technique, but another technique. Kamisato Tsukika has already reached the level of Namikaze Minato in studying the Flying Thunder God technique, and it is impossible to make a breakthrough in a short time. And soon, the Chunin exam will come. This is a time point that Kamisato Tsukika has been planning. Kamisato Tsukika needs to get what he wants from the Sannin after the Chunin exam. For example, the summoning scrolls or specific locations of the 3 holy places, such as the research on Orochimaru. So what Kamisato Tsukika is studying now is the Spiritualization Technique. Because the Spiritualization Technique involves the soul, and the weakness of Orochimaru, one of the Sannin, is the soul. Kamisato Tsukika is going to start from this aspect to see if he can find a way to control Orochimaru. Even if he can't completely control Orochimaru, he must have a threat that can threaten Orochimaru and make Orochimaru obedient or cooperate. At that time, Orochimaru's research results will be his. Kamisato Tsukika's eyes light up when he thinks of Orochimaru's research. He has been coveting Orochimaru's research results for a long time. Not to mention various ninjutsu. The only ninjutsu of Orochimaru that Kamisato Tsukika is interested in is living corpse reincarnation and impure world reincarnation. Kamisato Tsukika already has impure world reincarnation, and Kamisato Tsukika only plans to use living corpse reincarnation for reference. What makes Kamisato Tsukika so concerned is Orochimaru's research in human anatomy and cytology. Because Kamisato Tsukika has no access to this knowledge, he knows almost nothing about this field. Of course, if Kamisato Tsukika is given time, with his understanding, Kamisato Tsukika believes that once he enters this field, he will soon be able to surpass Orochimaru. But Kamisato Tsukika is too short of time, and he has too many things to study. And most importantly, the research on human body and cytology cannot be achieved by deduction, but requires real data. And to get those real data, you must have a complete set of experimental equipment and various experimental subjects. These are things that Kamisato Tsukika does not have now, but Orochimaru has. Besides, why should you work hard to get something for free? The neighbors store food, and I store guns. The neighbors are my granary. Orochimaru's research results are the research results of Kamisato Tsukika. Chapter 52. Chunin examination in the cabin. Kamisato Tsukika began to study the means against Orochimaru. On the other side of Konoha village, the training of Team 7 came to an end. It has been more than a month since Team 7 returned from the Land of Waves, and Hatake Kakashi started special training for Team 7. During this month, Team 7, including Hatake Kakashi, has gained something, but the biggest gainer is Uchiha Sasuke. Because Uchiha Sasuke successfully learned a ninjutsu from Hatake Kakashi that gave him more confidence. It was also a ninjutsu that Uchiha Sasuke should have learned during the Chunin exam, Hatake Kakashi's self-created A-level ninjutsu Chidori. As for why this ninjutsu was given to Uchiha Sasuke so early, Hatake Kakashi had no solution. Kamisato Tsukika dealt a heavy blow to Uchiha Sasuke during the mission in the Land of Waves. Both Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto were no longer satisfied with the previous training methods, especially Uchiha Sasuke, who urgently needed to narrow the gap with Kamisato Tsukika. Perhaps it was Uchiha Sasuke's persistence and hard work that touched Hatake Kakashi, or perhaps it was his nostalgia for his former close friend in the Uchiha clan. Hatake Kakashi finally made the decision to hand over Chidori to Uchiha Sasuke. And Uchiha Sasuke did not disappoint Hatake Kakashi. It took Uchiha Sasuke only 1 month to master the A-level ninjutsu that ordinary people would take several months or even half a year to master. Of course, this also had a lot to do with Uchiha Sasuke's possession of the 2 Tomo Sharingan. In short, Uchiha Sasuke has now mastered Chidori, and his confidence has recovered from the blow. Although he did not swell to the point of thinking that he had caught up with Kamisato Tsukika, he still had the illusion that the gap between the two was not big. After all, he is really very different from him before. Compared to the time when he fought against Mizunozuki Haku in Wave Country, he has made great progress in physical skills, ninjutsu, and combat experience. Especially 2 Tomo Sharingan plus Chidori, which makes Uchiha Sasuke feel stronger than ever before. Compared with Uchiha Sasuke, Naruto and little Sakura have gained much less. Naruto's improvement is in physical skills and combat awareness. Time is tight, and Hatake Kakashi did not teach Uzumaki Naruto to practice wind-style ninjutsu and jinjutsu. Haruno Sakura's improvement is in chakra control and physical skills, and she is also the smallest improvement among the 3. There is no way around it. Haruno Sakura's talent is precise chakra control, which is suitable for the path of medical ninjutsu. But although Hatake Kakashi is called a copy ninja, he is really not good at medical ninjutsu. No, it should be said that he does not know medical ninjutsu at all. For Haruno Sakura, apart from physical skills and jinjutsu, Hatake Kakashi really has nothing to teach. Of course, this is also because Haruno Sakura has less chakra. If Haruno Sakura has the chakra of Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke, Hatake Kakashi would not mind teaching Haruno Sakura some ninjutsu. That's all for today. Also, the special training is over. At noon, in a forest outside Konoha village, Hatake Kakashi on a tree looked at the eagle hovering in the sky and suddenly spoke to the 3 disciples below. After speaking, he used the body flicker technique to leave, leaving the 3 members of Team 7 confused. The special training is over? This is too sudden, Haruno Sakura complained. Although her improvement in this month was not great, she was still very happy to be able to spend every day with Uchiha Sasuke. Great, it's finally over. To celebrate the end of the special training, let's reward ourselves with a bowl of special ramen today. Uzumaki Naruto spoke loudly and excitedly. Thinking that he would soon be able to eat the ramen made by Uncle Ichiraku, he couldn't help but drool. Uchiha Sasuke said nothing, didn't even say hello to the 2, turned around and left directly. Sasuke-kun, let's go back together. Haruno Sakura saw this and licked it quickly. Little Sakura, wait for me. Naruto followed suit. Hokage's office. At this time, a group of ninjas had gathered in the office, including Junin and Shinin, Hatake Kakashi, Sarutobi Asuma, Yuhi Kurenai, Irika, and many familiar faces. Then, after the decision, Konoha will tentatively have 73 people participate in this Chunin exam. If there is no objection, go and fill out the application form. After a few arguments between Hatake Kakashi and Irika, Sarutobi Hiruzen spoke to everyone. This gathering was for the Chunin exam, and almost all the ninjas present were team leaders. 73 people? Sarutobi Asuma asked in confusion. Konoha's teams are all in groups of 3. Just now, the team leaders recommended 72 people to participate in the Chunin exam. Why did the 3rd generation say 73 people? Well, in addition to the genin you recommended, there's another genin named Kamisato Tsukika who will also participate in this Chunin exam. Sarutobi Hiruzen glanced at his son and then explained. However, Kamisato Tsukika is in a special situation. He has no genin teammates after graduating from the ninja school, so he will take the exam alone this time. Alone? 3rd generation master. Although Kamisato Tsukika is the top student of this ninja school, this is the Chunin exam after all. If there is a team confrontation during the process, isn't it too dangerous for Kamisato Tsukika to take the exam alone? Irika, who had just been confronted by Hatake Kakashi, couldn't help but speak again. Even though Kamisato Tsukika showed a very good fighting ability when facing Mizuki before, Irika was still worried. As soon as Irika finished speaking, Hatake Kakashi and Yuhi Kurenai looked at Irika with strange eyes. Dangerous? Hee. The 2 couldn't help but laugh in their hearts. Kamisato Tsukika takes the Chunin exam, and the other genins are in danger, right? That's a genin who can crush and kill elite genin. At this moment, Hatake Kakashi thought of Zabuza Momochi, and Kurenai Yuhi thought of Raiga Kuroki. Don't worry, Irika. Kamisato Tsukika is better than you think, and it's no problem for him to take the Chunin exam alone. Sarutobi Hiruzen spoke and smiled confidently. This confident tone and expression moved the hearts of other ninjas, and they all remembered Kamisato Tsukika's name. Okay, it's decided. Let the Genins fill out the application. Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't give Irika any more chances to say more, and decided with a wave of his hand. At this time, Kamisato Tsukika didn't know that Sarutobi Hiruzen had already signed him up for the Chunin exam. He was helplessly looking at the excited girl who suddenly stood up in front of him, sighing in his heart, but still nodded to the girl. It seems that today's research ends here. Great, Wakuin. Let's go find the others together. We finally have some free time, so we must have a good time together. Seeing that Kamisato Yuehua agreed to her invitation, Ino jumped up and down excitedly. Chapter 53. Gaara appears when Kamisato Tsukika reluctantly accompanied Ino to find other people. Hatake Kakashi and others also walked out of the Hokage office, preparing to inform their respective disciples. I won't stop you from testing Naruto Sasuke and the others, but if you want to test Kamisato Tsukika, I advise you to calm down and think carefully about what the third-generation master said. Hatake Kakashi walked past Irika and left such a sentence, which made Irika look stunned. The words of the third Hokage. He frowned and recalled what the third-generation master said just now. Soon, Irika's eyes widened. He understood. Because the third-generation master said that Kamisato Tsukika would take the Chunin exam alone, he was so concerned at the time that he didn't notice that the third-generation master said Kamisato Tsukika didn't have Genin teammates instead of didn't have teammates. So a top student in ninja school was not assigned to a class after graduation, but had teammates who were not Genin, and the Hokage paid so much attention to him. What does it mean? This means that Kamisato Tsukika's teammates are not ordinary Genin, which means that the third generation has always been aware of Kamisato Tsukika's situation. Then, there's only one possibility. I didn't expect this kid to enter Umbu. No wonder the third generation is so confident in him. It seems that he has grown up a lot. Irika smiled and talked to himself. He had guessed Kamisato Tsukika's situation and couldn't help but feel happy for Kamisato Tsukika. After all, no matter how dangerous Umbu is, the ninjas who can enter Umbu are all excellent ninjas without exception. And Kamisato Tsukika's excellence has obviously been recognized by the third generation. Moreover, Irika thought of another thing. Since the third generation is willing to let Kamisato Tsukika, who is a member of Umbu, take the Chunin exam and push Kamisato Tsukika back to the front, does it mean that Kamisato Tsukika no longer needs to stay in a dangerous place like Umbu? Thinking of this, Irika was even happier. After all, Umbu is too dangerous, and he really doesn't feel at ease that his excellent student has always been an Umbu member. In fact, Irika's guess was correct. Sarutobi Hiruzen did have this plan. The reason why he transferred Kamisato Tsukika to Umbu was to be able to better teach Kamisato Tsukika and secretly cultivate a strong fighting force for Konoha. Now, Kamisato Tsukika has learned everything he can teach, and it is no longer necessary for her to continue in Umbu. Moreover, since it has been decided to train Kamisato Tsukika as the sixth Hokage, Kamisato Tsukika certainly cannot stay in Umbu. Hokage needs to be recognized by everyone. And if others don't know you, how can you let others recognize you? So Sarutobi Hiruzen decided to let Kamisato Tsukika return to the open, start accumulating fame from this Chunin exam, and prepare for becoming a Hokage in the future. In Konoha village, Kamisato Tsukika didn't know that she had been kicked out of Umbu. He accompanied Ino to meet up with Shikumaru-chai first, and then went to find Hinata Naruto and the others together. Along the way, Ino chattered nonstop, like a happy kingfisher, sharing her life after graduation with Kamisato Yuehua. The daily tasks of the 10th class are similar to those of the 7th and 8th classes, all of which are Genin exclusive tasks such as catching cats and walking dogs, carrying water, and farming. The difference is that the 10th class has not encountered the situation where the task level of the 7th and 8th classes has been upgraded to A or even S. Since graduation, Ino and his classmates have almost all done normal D-level tasks, with only a few C-level tasks. However, the situation of the 10th class is different from that of the 7th and 8th classes. The three people in the 10th class are a fixed Ino-Shika-CH combination, and their growth depends on the cooperation of secret techniques. Not long after, Kamisato Uehua and Ino found Nara Shikamaru and Akimichi Chai. "Hey Uehua, long time no see." Shikamaru greeted Kamisato Uehua after seeing him. Seeing that his good friend was not missing any limbs, he was still very happy in his heart. After all, it's really dangerous to be in that kind of place. Compared to Irika, who needed Hitaki Kakashi to remind him, Nara Shikamaru, even though he knew less information, had roughly guessed that Kamisato Tsukika was now in Umbu. With such an IQ, there was nothing he could do. "Tsukika, do you want some potato chips?" Chai's way of expressing happiness was still the same. He was happy to share his potato chips with Kamisato Tsukika. "Long time no see. It seems that you're all doing well." Kamisato Tsukika took the potato chips handed over by Akimichi Chai and spoke to the two of them. He was in a good mood to see his friends again after 2 months. "Let's talk about the past on the way. Let's go find Team 7 and Team 8 first. I guess Naruto is most likely at Ichiraku Ramen. What do you think?" Ino interrupted the three people's reminiscing and took the three people to the direction of Ichiraku Ramen. The four of them walked together, talking and laughing all the way. "Hey, it's Naruto and little Sakura? Who are those two?" When passing by a certain alley, Ino spoke in surprise. She saw Uzumaki Naruto and Haruno Sakura inside. But there were not only Uzumaki Naruto and Haruno Sakura, but also 3 children and 2 other people, a boy and a girl, whom Ino didn't know. When Kamisato Tsukika heard this, she knew who the 2 people Ino didn't know were without looking at him. Turning around, it was Temari and Kankuro, who were familiar yet unfamiliar to him. Is this a plot? The corners of Kamisato Tsukika's mouth slightly raised, and with a glance, he had already seen Uchiha Sasuke, who was showing off on the tree, and Gaara hiding behind Uchiha Sasuke. But Kamisato Tsukika didn't take the initiative to jump out to find a sense of existence. He just followed Ino and watched with interest. The people in the alley also saw the 4 people coming, and when they saw Kamisato Tsukika and the others, Naruto and little Sakura's eyes lit up immediately. Just now they were suppressed by Temari and Kankuro, and they felt a little guilty. Seeing familiar people at this time, especially seeing Kamisato Tsukika there, they suddenly felt confident. "Tsukika, Shikamaru Ino Chai." Naruto waved excitedly. Temari and Kankuro naturally saw Kamisato Tsukika and the other 4. Seeing Kamisato Tsukika's exquisite and handsome face, Temari blushed and felt that the boy was so handsome, even more handsome than the one on the tree. Kankuro looked unhappy. After all, he didn't look good. "What happened here? And who are you?" Ino asked in confusion, looking at Temari and Kankuro at the same time. She was 100% sure that she didn't know these 2 people. Are the little brats in Konoha really arrogant? Before asking others, shouldn't you introduce yourself first? Kankuro snorted coldly and spoke with an unhappy face, his eyes darkened. He was already upset because Uchiha Sasuke had injured his arm with a stone just now. Now, he couldn't help but get angry when he heard Ino's question. As soon as Kankuro said this, the scene suddenly became quiet and the atmosphere became solemn. But immediately, a voice broke the calm. "Kankuro, assistant." As soon as this voice came out, everyone was startled, especially Uchiha Sasuke on the tree. This guy is so fast as Kakashi. Uchiha Sasuke's face was gloomy, his eyes remained calm, but his heart was in turmoil. Chapter 54. Reunion of Zyokyang and the excited 3rd generation. You will only bring shame to the village. Why do you think we came all the way to Konoha? Gaara spoke expressionlessly, looking at Kankuro with indifferent eyes, which made Kankuro feel numb. These guys came up to make trouble first. Shut up. Gaara interrupted Kankuro before he finished speaking. Especially Gaara's next sentence made Kankuro sweat. Kill you. When these 3 words came out, not to mention Kankuro, Even Naruto Sasuke and the others were shocked. I know. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Kankuro apologized weakly, but he always looked at Gaara. I'm so sorry. Gaara also knew that Kankuro was not convinced in his heart and apologized only under his threat. So he turned his head and spoke to Uchiha Sasuke in front of him. In Gaara's heart, Uchiha Sasuke was the only person worth his attention. After all, being able to injure Kankuro with a stone proved that Uchiha Sasuke's strength was at least at the level of Chunin, and he was not an ordinary Chunin. Similarly, in Uchiha Sasuke's heart, Gaara also made him solemn. But Uchiha Sasuke was more excited. He even wanted to fight with Gaara. After all, Uchiha Sasuke, who had just finished special training with Kakashi, couldn't wait to see how strong he was with Chidori in his hand. As for why he didn't try with other people of the same age, it was naturally because Uchiha Sasuke looked down on people other than Kamisato Tsukika, and Kamisato Tsukika's strength. Humph, I will catch up with you sooner or later. No, I will surpass you. Uchiha Sasuke glanced at Kamisato Tsukika in the crowd below and swore in his heart. After Gaara finished speaking, he turned in his sand and fell from the tree to the ground. Let's go. We're not here to play. After landing, Gaara spoke to Kankuro and Temari, and then he left on his own. And Kankuro and Temari followed him obediently. Although they are Gaara's older brother and sister, in front of Gaara, they are more like two younger brothers. Seeing that Gaara and the other two were about to leave, Haruno Sakura couldn't help but step forward and ask the three to stop. From the forehead protector, you're ninjas from the Hidden Sand Village. Although the Wind Country and the Fire Country are allies, the treaty should prohibit ninjas from entering and leaving each other's countries at will. Tell us the purpose of your coming to Konoha, and we will. Haruno Sakura spoke with great momentum, but he was interrupted by Temari before he finished speaking. It's really dark under the lamp. You don't know anything, this is the pass. As he said, Temari showed the pass in his hand, and then said, It is indeed as you said, we are ninjas from the Sand Village in the Wind Country, and we came here to participate in the Chunin selection exam. Chunin selection exam? Uzumaki Naruto was confused, with a lot of question marks in his mind. Seeing this, Shikamaru held his forehead and then explained, as the name suggests, this is the exam to select Chunin. Only by passing it can you become a Chunin. Really? Then I want to try it too. Hearing Shikamaru's words, Uzumaki Naruto became excited. This made Shikamaru hold his forehead again. On the other side, Gaara and the other two set off again. From the beginning to the end, Gaara didn't pay much attention to Kamisato Tsukika. The impression Kamisato Tsukika gave him was that she was just an ordinary Konoha shinobi, except that she was very handsome. Unlike the original work, this time Uchiha Sasuke didn't call me Iwo and ask his name, because in Uchiha Sasuke's heart, he was more concerned about Kamisato Tsukika. After Gaara and others left, Haruno Sakura couldn't help but cover his forehead. Kakashi teacher is really something. He didn't tell us about the Chunin exam in advance, so we have to get the news from the Sunagake Your Ninja. Teacher Asuma didn't tell us either. Ino shrugged. They only knew that the Chunin exam was about to begin. Okay, by the way, are you here to find us? Haruno Sakura sighed, holding back his complaints about the village, and looked at Ino in confusion. Of course. Have you forgotten what we said last time we got together? When everyone earns money from completing tasks, let's go to the barbecue restaurant for dinner. Ino spoke up and invited the three people. This time, Haruno Sakura and Naruto both agreed readily. Although they have been doing D-level and C-level tasks, the commission money is not much, but there are many tasks. Moreover, they have done an S-level task in the Kingdom of Waves before, and now they have a lot of money. Nice! Then let's go find Hinata and Yoshino. I have a hunch that they are also resting today. Soon, everyone found the three people in the 8th team. However, Ino guessed wrong. The 8th team did not rest. After Yuhi Kurenai came back and asked them to fill in the form, she continued to train the three people in the 8th team at the training ground. After all, the Chunin exam will be held in a week, and the Chunin exam will kill people. Yuhi Kurenai does not want her disciples to die in the Chunin exam. However, after Ino and Kurenai explained the situation, Kurenai still gave Inada and the other three a half-day holiday to let them have a good rest. During the whole process, Kamisato Tsukika and Kurenai did not speak or make eye contact, and the two were still deliberately avoiding each other. In this way, the 9 little strong men of Konoha gathered together again after more than 2 months. As for Kamisato Tsukika, he is no longer a little strong man, he is a strong man. Everyone was very happy at the party that night. It is definitely a happy thing to be able to eat, drink, and have fun with friends, so even when paying the bill, no one felt sorry for the expensive barbecue price. One night passed, and a new day arrived as promised. Kamisato Tsukika was summoned by Sarutobi Hiruzen before she continued her research. As for what it was naturally about the Chunin exam. But before telling Kamisato Tsukika about the Chunin exam, Sarutobi Hiruzen first asked Kamisato Tsukika about the Flying Thunder God technique. This is the most important thing. If Kamisato Tsukika's talent in Flying Thunder God technique is as good as her talent in other aspects, then Konoha will have one more 4th Hokage or 2nd Hokage. Regardless of whether it is the 4th generation or the 2nd Hokage, they're all able to protect Konoha's peace for 20 years. Therefore, when the nervous Sarutobi Hiruzen heard that Kamisato Tsukika had learned the Flying Thunder God technique and was becoming more and more proficient, he couldn't help but shout a few times in excitement. This news really made him so happy that he was excited. Those who have not experienced the Flying Thunder God technique personally can never imagine how terrible the Flying Thunder God technique is. But the difficulty of this technique is also terrible. So Sarutobi Hiruzen directly took Kamisato Tsukika to the Sarutobi clan's training ground to see Kamisato Tsukika use the Flying Thunder God technique with his own eyes. After seeing Kamisato Tsukika use the Flying Thunder God technique, Sarutobi Hiruzen finally put his mind at ease and talked to Kamisato Tsukika. It took a long time before he remembered to tell Kamisato Tsukika about the Chunin exam. After telling her about the Chunin exam, Sarutobi Hiruzen told Kamisato Tsukika that after the Chunin exam, Kamisato Tsukika would not have to report to Umbu, and there would be new arrangements for her. This made Kamisato Tsukika slightly melancholy. It seems that it is time to say goodbye to the beautiful Captain Yuzuki. Chapter 55. One person participating? Pray. When Sarutobi Hiruzen verified Kamisato Tsukika's Flying Thunder God technique, Hatake Kakashi also gave the Chunin application form to Uchiha Sasuke and the other two and set a test for them. He told the 3 members of Team 7 that this was an exam that was entirely up to their personal will, and they could decide whether to participate or not, and whether they participated or not would not have any impact. This test was more of a test for Haruno Sakura than a test for Team 7. After all, with the personalities of Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto, they would definitely choose to participate in the Chunin exam. Only Haruno Sakura would be the one who hesitated in Team 7. Haruno Sakura did hesitate, but with the same result as the original work, Haruno Sakura finally chose to participate and passed Hatake Kakashi's test. As for Team 8 and Team 10, no matter what they thought in their hearts, they did not choose to retreat and also chose to participate in this Chunin exam. Time passed in a flash, and 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 7 days, Team 7 successfully passed Irika's test. Finally, the time for the Chunin exam has arrived. Early in the morning, hundreds of candidates gathered at the Konoha Shinobi School, where the exam venue was mentioned in the notice. Kamisato Iwawa set off slowly by himself. When he was in school, he was a crazy person who checked the time. The Chunin exam was not very important to him, so there was no need to arrive in advance. It was precisely because Kamisato Iwawa went late that he saw a good show when he arrived at the ninja school. In the crowd, Rock Lee, who was wearing a tights and a watermelon rind on his head, had 2 blushes on his face. He raised his thumbs in the surprised eyes of everyone, revealing a big mouth that blinded people's eyes. White Fang was loudly confessing to Haruno Sakura, "Please date me. I will protect you until I die." The full-bodied voice spread throughout the corridor, and people were stunned. Haruno Sakura, who was confessed to, was in a bad mood. She looked absent-minded, but she was still very firm and spoke word by word. Absolutely yes, no, no. Rock Lee was stunned for a moment after hearing this. Then he heard Haruno Sakura continue to say, "Your eyebrows are too thick." This sentence was like a fatal blow, which made Rock Lee instantly deflated, like a castrated eggplant. And Uzumaki Naruto couldn't help laughing when he saw this. But soon, he couldn't laugh anymore, because Hyuga Niji appeared and ignored him directly, and asked Uchiha Sasuke's name. Obviously, in Hyuga Niji's eyes, there was only Uchiha Sasuke and no Uzumaki Naruto. This hit Uzumaki Naruto hard, and he felt that he was so unremarkable like a passerby. And this scene made Kamisato Tsukika couldn't help but smile. Sure enough, the smile would not disappear. It would only be transferred to someone else's face. Following the crowd, Kamisato Yuehua knew there was still a good show to watch. After entering the third floor, Rock Lee would not be able to help but challenge Uchiha Sasuke to prove that hard work can be greater than talent. Thinking about the plot he had seen before, Kamisato Yuehua was very interested. Although the duel between Uchiha Sasuke and Rock Lee was no different from playing house in his eyes, it was a real-life version. It was still very good to be able to watch the real-life version of Hokage. However, Kamisato Yuehua was destined not to see that plot because Rock Lee saw him. "Yuehua, you're also participating in this Chunin exam." After seeing Kamisato Yuehua in the crowd, Rock Lee couldn't help but wave to Kamisato Yuehua excitedly. The two naturally knew each other. After all, Kamisato Yuehua got the 8 inner gates from Might Guy, and Rock Lee was almost always around Might Guy. Especially when exercising, the two often do various exercises that sound very scary to outsiders. What about running around Konoha 500 times, doing 1,000 push-ups? In short, they just do their best to torment themselves. Of course, this is also the way to exercise in the 8 inner gates. Only by keeping a high-intensity body can you better control the 8 inner gates. Kamisato Yuehua is an exception, Rock Lee exclaimed, and immediately attracted people's attention again, and they all looked at Kamisato Yuehua following Rock Lee's gaze. "Yuehua, why are you here too?" Seeing Kamisato Yuehua, not only Rock Lee was surprised, but Naruto was also surprised and quickly came to Kamisato Yuehua. "Lee, Naruto, what a coincidence." Seeing that she was exposed, Kamisato Yuehua also spoke openly. "Yuehua-kun, I didn't expect you to come to the Chunin exam alone. I thought you didn't participate." Haruno Sakura spoke unexpectedly, and Uchiha Sasuke was also curious. They knew Kamisato Tsukika's identity, and they all thought that Kamisato Tsukika would not participate in this Chunin exam. "Huh? Participating alone? You're participating in the Chunin exam alone." Hearing Haruno Sakura's words, Tintin blurted out in surprise. At the same time, the other Genins in the passage all looked at Kamisato Tsukika with confusion and surprise in their eyes. "Is there anything wrong with this? Why do you seem to be so surprised?" Haruno Sakura saw the expressions of the crowd and immediately realized that something was wrong, because everyone else was too surprised. Isn't it said that this is an exam that is entirely based on personal will? It's normal to participate alone. Hearing this, Hyuga Niji glanced at Haruno Sakura and then spoke. "Indeed, the Chunin exam does not stipulate that you cannot take the exam alone. But the Chunin exam is not a simple one-on-one duel to determine the winner, but a test of the Genin's comprehensive abilities, including leadership, combat effectiveness, decision-making, intelligence, etc. After all, after becoming a Chunin, you're already qualified to lead a team. If you don't have good comprehensive abilities, you can't lead a team well." At this point, Hyuga Niji paused and continued. "Of course, if that's all, it's okay to take the exam alone. But if you take the Chunin exam alone, you must be mentally prepared to be targeted by everyone. After all, the Chunin exam is a selection exam, but it also has an elimination mechanism. Under certain requirements that the enemy must be eliminated, who doesn't want to choose the weakest enemy? So, even if there is no rule, everyone still defaults to forming a team and 3 people take the exam at the same time. I guess you are the only Genin who takes the exam as an individual in this exam. In other words, You have become the prey of all teams in this Chunin exam. Hyuga looked at Kamisato Tsukika and spoke, but Kamisato Tsukika remained calm from beginning to end. On the contrary, Naruto, Sasuke, and little Sakura were all surprised after listening to Hyuga story. This was a situation they did not understand. Looking at the eyes of the people around them, the three could clearly see the burning eyes of those people looking at Kamisato Tsukika. Obviously, Hyuga was right. Kamisato Tsukika had become the prey of other ninjas. Tsukika-kun, I didn't mean it. Little Sakura apologized with apology, realizing that he had caused Kamisato Tsukika a lot of trouble. However, Kamisato Tsukika just smiled. Don't worry. Although I'm only one person, I am very strong. Hearing this, little Sakura was relieved again. Yes, it should be the other genins who should be worried. Kamisato Tsukika is not a genin at all. Chapter 56, True Genius. After Kamisato Tsukika said that he was very strong, Haruno Sakura also realized that Kamisato Tsukika really could not be viewed as an ordinary genin. His strength was really strong, maybe even stronger than teacher Kakashi. Let's go. If we don't leave now, we will be late. Ignoring the eyes of other ninjas looking at prey, Kamisato Tsukika smiled and spoke. Prey? In this Chunin exam, Kamisato Tsukika is the top hunter. But in this Chunin exam, Kamisato Tsukika's prey is only one person. One of the Sannin, Orochimaru. As for the other genins, they are not even prey. To be honest, asking him to take the Chunin exam, isn't this bullying an honest man? Hearing Kamisato Tsukika's reminder, everyone retracted their gazes and set off again. But in their hearts, Kamisato Tsukika has been marked. The group successfully arrived at the third floor. Kamisato Uehua saw Hatake Kakashi, who had been waiting here for a long time. After nodding and greeting him, Kamisato Uehua entered the examination room first. As soon as they entered the examination room, they saw a dense crowd of people. Hundreds of people had arrived in advance. These people were genin from various villages. They were old and young, but they were not particularly mature. Most of them looked young. After Kamisato Uehua came in, a figure rushed over and hugged Kamisato Uehua's arm. Uehua, you actually came to take the exam, Ino said with surprise. She didn't expect to see Kamisato Uehua in this 30. By the way, where are your teammates? Seeing that Kamisato Uehua was alone, Ino asked curiously again. I don't have teammates. I came alone. Kamisato Uehua pulled her arm out of Ino's arms and spoke helplessly. His voice was neither loud nor soft, just the sound of normal people communicating. However, as soon as he said this, many genin in the examination room looked over. Obviously, these people have been eavesdropping on the conversation here. They are not particularly concerned about Kamisato Tsukika, but as a ninja, they will subconsciously collect all the information they can. Alone? How could it be? Ino was surprised. Kamisato Tsukika's answer was completely beyond her expectations. Okay, Ino, since the village agreed to Tsukika to take the exam alone, it must have been seriously considered. Seeing that Ino had not yet realized that she had exposed Kamisato Tsukika's information, Shikamaru came over and interrupted. What's wrong with participating alone? And you don't need teammates at all. Another familiar voice sounded. It was Inazuka Kiba, and the 8th team had arrived early. Kiba's voice was very confident. Others didn't know what Kamisato Tsukika's strength was, so how could he not know? Teacher Hong said in person that the elite Jnin rebel ninja of Kirigakure was killed by Kamisato Tsukika, and they were also saved by Kamisato Tsukika from the hands of Sunagakure Jnin. And Kiba's words made the genin who had been paying attention here feel condensed. It seems that this is a very powerful character. However, they're a whole team. Let's pay attention to them first. Yuka-kun. Hinata spoke weakly, and her fingers began to entangle again. Hinata. Kamisato Yuka found Hinata's appearance interesting and wanted to tease Hinata, but she held back. Huh? Shikamaru, Kiba, you are all here. Another loud voice sounded. It was Naruto, who had just entered the examination room. When he saw Shikamaru and the others, his eyes lit up, and he quickly came over here. Yo, I thought you gave up taking this exam. But it doesn't matter whether you come or not. You can't pass anyway. Kiba spoke, and he didn't know why he always got in trouble with Naruto. TSK, you will be eliminated, okay? Naruto immediately retorted after hearing this. The others were also used to the way the two would quarrel when they met, and ignored them, just talking to each other. 10 people were communicating here, making the examination room a little noisy. Hey, you better be quiet. A voice interrupted the conversation of 10 people. Everyone looked over and saw a silver-haired young man wearing a pair of round-framed glasses, who looked harmless. His name is Kabuto. Yakushi Kabuto, a man who will stir up a great storm in the ninja world in the future, one of the initiators of the Fourth Ninja World War, and a famous dream maker in the ninja world. You are all newcomers who just graduated from other schools, so you are yelling like this. After seeing the 10 people looking at him, Kabuto continued to speak, looking at the 10 people as if they were looking at a child. What? Who are you? What's wrong with us talking here? Ino felt unhappy when she saw Yakushi Kabuto's expression and questioned Yakushi Kabuto. Yakushi Kabuto remained calm upon hearing this and just said playfully, "My name is Yakushi Kabuto. Rather than telling me who I am, I think it would be better for you to take a look around first." Hearing this, the little cockroaches looked at the other people in the examination room. At this time, all the genins looked at them, and each of them had a bad look on their faces, and their eyes were also very cold, as if they were looking at prey. This shocked several people. They had never seen such a scene. This kind of being stared at as prey was really scary. Don't look at them as fierce. They are just pretending. Most of the people here are newcomers who are taking the Chunin exam for the first time. Everyone is the same. Kamiri Tsukika spoke to break the silence, and everyone looked at him. But because Kamisato Tsukika said they were pretending, everyone looked at Kamisato Tsukika with a fierce look. However, some people were different. Sure enough, Tsukika is still so confident. I really don't know how strong he is now, but he is definitely not weak. He is a real genius, and a hard-working genius. Lockley looked at Kamisato Tsukika and spoke in a low voice, which made Hyuganiji look sideways. He has heard this kind of words many times. This made him want to see how strong the person who was called a true genius by Rock Lee was. Yes, he's a genius. Tintin was powerless to speak, but he was also full of curiosity about Kamisato Tsukika. On the other side, Gaara and the other two also recognized Kamisato Tsukika. It's that handsome boy. I seem to have heard someone say that he was participating in this Chunin exam alone. Temari spoke in a low voice. This was the information she had just heard. Alone? Really confident. Kenkaro looked at Kamisato Uehua coldly. At this moment, he also regarded Kamisato Uehua as his prey. Gaara remained silent, looking at Kamisato Uehua, confused. He did not feel any strong aura from Kamisato Uehua, but since the other party dared to participate in the Chunin exam alone, he must have something to rely on. So what would he rely on? This person is worth paying attention to. Facing hundreds of eyes on the field, Kamisato was not moved at all, with a calm face, as if there was only a pile of air in front of him. This made the atmosphere on the field tense and solemn. However, he never took the initiative to attack Kamisato Uehua. As Kamisato Uehua said, in fact, most of the people here are taking the Chunin exam for the first time. They are also newcomers, but they are just using indifferent expressions to cover up their inner panic. It seems that you are very confident, but it seems normal. After all, you are the only genin with serious information missing in the information I collected for this Chunin exam. Yakushi Kabuto broke the silence of the examination room. He looked at Kamisato Tsukika and pushed his glasses, his eyes full of curiosity under the lenses. Information? Naruto asked curiously, and the others also came back to their senses from the nervous mood just now and looked at Yakushi Kabuto. Well, these ninja cards are the information I collected. Yakushi Kabuto said, taking out more than 100 Reiji cards in his hand. After Yakushi Kabuto's explanation, everyone also knew the effect and use of ninja cards. So, do you have any information you want to know? Since you are my juniors, I will share it with you for free. Yakushi Kabuto said, and continued his performance. After hearing this, several people looked at each other. And finally, Uchiha Sasuke stood up. Like the original, he chose to look at the information of Locke and Gaara. Obviously, Rock Lee left a deep impression on Uchiha Sasuke. After all, they had fought each other on the second floor. As for Gaara, it was naturally the speed that shocked Uchiha Sasuke that caught his attention. Next, Yakushi Kabuto continued his performance and was surprised that Gaara had performed below missions and was able to escape unscathed every time. This also made Sasuke and others realize that Gaara was definitely not a good person. Afterwards, the plot in the original work did not change, and a live-action version was staged in the eyes of Kamisato Tsukika, and the genin of the ninja village attacked Yakushi Kabuto. As for the reason, on the one hand, it was because Yakushi Kabuto deliberately said that the Sound Village was a small ninja village that no one cared about to anger them. And on the other hand, Kamisato Tsukika's words just now made him hold his breath in his heart. So Yakushi Kabuto suffered a heavy blow. If he knew the identity of Yakushi Kabuto, it might be very interesting. Kamisato Tsukika thought to himself, "Bang! Everyone be quiet. The show is over." And with a loud bang, Marino Ibiki appears. The first round of the Chunin exam officially begins. Chapter 57. People who misjudged. Sasuke was shocked. Ibiki Marino's appearance was abrupt and extremely oppressive, and it can be said that almost everyone present was shocked. Especially looking at that face full of scars, people knew that this person was definitely not simple. Sitting in the assigned seat, Kamisato Tsukika waited quietly. He wanted to see how difficult the questions that stumped almost all candidates in the original book were. However, before getting the test paper, he had to watch Ibiki Marino's performance. On the podium, Ibiki Marino began to explain the rules of this exam. The first rule was standard. The test content contained 10 questions. If you answered correctly, you would get 1 point. If you answered incorrectly, you would lose 1 point. And if you're found to cheat, you would draw 2 points. Everyone could accept this rule. But when Ibiki Marino said the second rule, that whether you passed or not would depend on the total score of the 3 people in the team, Kamisato Tsukika heard a thump. He looked over and saw that it was little Sakura, who had already hit her head on the table. Damn it, in this case, Sakura, and I need to get close to full marks. On the other side, Uchiha Sasuke also frowned, obviously, and did not think Naruto could get any score in this exam. Uchiha Sasuke even made plans for Naruto to get 0 points. And Naruto, he also knew his situation, and at this time he looked desperate, feeling the 2 resentments coming from behind, and did not dare to look at Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura. But immediately, Marino Ibiki announced the third rule. If one person in the team scores 0, everyone in the entire team will be considered unqualified. As soon as these words came out, Uchiha Sasuke was dumbfounded, Sakura was desperate, and Naruto was hugged. This time, let alone Naruto, even Kamisato Tsukika could feel the 2 murderous auras rushing towards Naruto. And Naruto was already trembling. "Yuka-kun, how do you calculate your score?" A soft voice came to 650's ears, and Kamisato Yuka smiled. It was Hinata who sat on his right, and Naruto was on Hinata's right, and the 3 of them sat in a narrow circle. "Don't worry. The village must have considered my case when making such an exam rule. Just answer the question seriously." Kamisato Yuka spoke. He did not take the initiative to ask Marino Ibiki's opinion anyway. The real purpose of this exam was not to test everyone's cultural level, but to test the intelligence-gathering ability of ninjas. "Then I declare that the exam will begin, and you have 1 hour." On the podium, after saying that the last question would be announced in 45 minutes, Marino Ibiki announced the start of the exam. Hearing this, Kamisato Yuka turned around and opened the test paper on his desk to see in person. The question was indeed not simple, but for Kamisato Yuka, it was not difficult. He knew the answer to such a question at a glance. Disappointed, Kamisato Tsukika still picked up the pen and started answering the questions. Kamisato Tsukika was disappointed that the questions were simple, but it was different for the others. More than 80% of the more than 100 genins looked at the questions and widened their eyes after a few glances, with a look of disbelief on their faces. Is this a question for a human? They were madly complaining in their hearts. Not to mention ordinary genins, even Uchiha Sasuke, a genius with excellent cultural knowledge, could only stare at the questions on the test paper. He read the entire test paper and found that he was not sure he could answer any question correctly. This made Uchiha Sasuke gasp. If he was like this, then you can imagine how Naruto would be. Absolutely 0 points, no need to think about it. In this case, even if little Sakura could answer 9 questions correctly, he would get 8 points after deducting 1 point for each wrong answer. If the average score was 6 points per person, he and Naruto would have to get 10 points together. But it was obvious that Naruto could not get any points, so unless he could get 10 points, or if little Sakura got 10 points, he would get 8 points. But no matter whether it was 10 points or 8 points, he had no confidence. Damn it, are we going to be eliminated just like that? Uchiha Sasuke clenched his fists, and it was hard for him to accept that he was eliminated just because of Naruto. But soon Uchiha Sasuke found something wrong. There were too many examiners here, and there were more than 10 examiners in one examination room. This was really unreasonable, as if they were sure that they would cheat. Wait, cheating? Uchiha Sasuke's eyes lit up, and after a quick glance at the candidates around him, he understood everything in his heart. Obviously, the reason why the questions in this exam were so difficult was to make them cheat. No, to be precise, it should be to collect intelligence. How to collect intelligence like a ninja? Tuan is the correct answer to this exam. After thinking it through, Uchiha Sasuke smiled confidently. Since we want to collect intelligence, there must be intelligence here. In other words, in this examination room, there is information arranged by the examiner that they have a correct answer. Thinking of this, Uchiha Sasuke suddenly thought of a person in his mind. Kamisato Tsukika. According to the rules, the first pass judgment condition is calculated according to the total score of 3 people. But Kamisato Tsukika is only one person taking the exam, and his total score is only 10 points at most. If it is divided into 3 parts, he will definitely fail. Kamisato Tsukika did not question or object to this rule. So, what is the purpose of Kamisato Tsukika taking the Chunin exam? He did not need to take an exam that was obviously eliminated long ago. But Kamisato Tsukika not only took the exam, but he also took the exam alone, so there's only one truth. 01340723014429090. Kamisato Tsukika is the information of this exam. Thinking of this, Uchiha Sasuke looked forward, where Kamisato Tsukika had already started writing answers on the test paper, and he seemed to be writing very fluently. Such performance made Uchiha Sasuke firm in his thoughts. If she didn't know the answer in advance, how could Kamisato Tsukika answer the questions so smoothly, as if she didn't need to think at all? FFFLX. Sharingan. Without any hesitation, Uchiha Sasuke directly opened his Sharingan and began to copy Kamisato Tsukika's movements. Not only Uchiha Sasuke, but many people in the examination room had the same guess as Uchiha Sasuke and came to the same conclusion. Kamisato Tsukika was the information they needed to collect in this exam. So not only Uchiha Sasuke started to act, but others also started to act. Hyuga Niji opened his Byakugan and looked directly through Kamisato Tsukika's body to see the test paper on Kamisato Tsukika's desk. Aburame Shino controlled a small insect to fly high and headed towards Kamisato Tsukika. The sand in Gaara's hand surged and soon condensed into a sand eye, and Tintin was ready to control his own ninja tool. The 3 people from the Sound Village also listened carefully to the sound of Kamisato Yuahua's pen tip rubbing against the test paper. It can be said that at almost the same time, more than 10 people in the examination room had already taken action against Kamisato Yuehua. Feeling the feeling of being spied on, Kamisato Yuehua frowned slightly. He slowed down his writing speed, and with a glance, he noticed the methods of many people. This made Kamisato Yuehua confused, and then he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Good guy. He was misunderstood by these people and regarded as the standard answer. After complaining in his heart, Kamisato Yuehua's mouth corners raised. I thought this exam was too boring, and I could get full marks without collecting intelligence at all. Now it seems that something interesting has happened. As a ninja, the ability to collect a means is very important. And the ability to be collected is also very important. Since these people collect his intelligence, then don't blame him for giving false information or refusing to be collected. With a playful smile in his heart, Kamisato Tsukika continued to slow down, and after thinking for a while, the pen in his hand continued to fall. But this time, Kamisato Tsukika's pen did not fall where it should be written, but on the next line. Then it returned to the same line, but not the position immediately after the previous word, but a few ministers were left empty. And for the next word, Kamisato Tsukika's pen had already appeared in the blank space in the center of the next question. In this way, Kamisato Tsukika began his special answer, and the purpose of his doing so directly caused the three people in the sound village to give all the wrong answers. Because they relied on sound to collect the content written by Kamisato Tsukika, and the content written by Kamisato Tsukika was also fine. Each word was a word in the correct answer, but it was not in the answer of the same question. But these words combined will form a very reasonable but wrong new answer. So, the three people in the sound village wrote a bunch of wrong answers without noticing. However, such writing cannot ensure that Kamisato Tsukika's information will not be collected. For example, Hyuga Niji and Gaara, although they were shocked by Kamisato Tsukika's writing method, could clearly see the content on Kamisato Tsukika's test paper. So, Kamisato Tsukika had to use other means. Even Uchiha Sasuke could continue to copy the correct answer from Kamisato Tsukika. Thinking of this, Kamisato Tsukika changed her writing movements. On the other side, Uchiha Sasuke, who looked confident, suddenly froze. His writing movements, which were smooth just now, suddenly became awkward. This made Uchiha Sasuke frown. He retracted his gaze and looked at his test paper, and his face suddenly changed. On his test paper, the last sentence was, "Not me, horizontal 2 and vertical 3. This was obviously not the answer, but Kamisato Tsukika told him that he was not the answer and asked him to look at the person in the second horizontal row and the third vertical row of the coordinates. Uchiha Sasuke looked over, and the genin that was answering the questions fluently, looking as smooth as Kamisato Tsukika. Chapter 58, The Terrifying Kamisato Tsukika, the person with 2 horizontal and 3 vertical coordinates, made Uchiha Sasuke realize that his inference was wrong. It should be said that it was half right and half wrong. The real purpose of this exam, and the fact that this exam would arrange intelligence, he analyzed it correctly. But Kamisato Tsukika was wrong. Kamisato Tsukika was not the real intelligence of this exam, nor was she the one who specially participated in the Chunin exam. The one who took this exam was someone else. Thinking of this, Uchiha Sasuke clenched the pen in his hand and was not happy about finding the correct answer. After all, this answer was told to him by Kamisato Tsukika. This means that Kamisato Tsukika knew the purpose of this exam earlier than him, proving that Kamisato Tsukika had better analytical ability than him. If it was just that, it would be fine. The most important thing was the way Kamisato Tsukika told him the correct answer. What did this prove? It proved that Kamisato Tsukika not only had better intelligence analysis and collection ability than him, but also had better intelligence collection ability than him. It's not just counterintelligence. If Kamisato Tsukika wants, he can pass on false information to Uchiha Sasuke and make Uchiha Sasuke fall into the trap. So, he was completely outclassed by Kamisato Tsukika. This made Uchiha Sasuke feel a little bit difficult to accept. It's okay to be inferior to others in strength, but it's a big blow to be inferior to others in intelligence. Kamisato Tsukika naturally didn't know about Uchiha Sasuke's defense. After telling Uchiha Sasuke that sentence, he stopped writing and rubbed his wrist naturally. The answer has been completely written. Only the 10th question has not been announced yet. While Kamisato Tsukika was rubbing his wrist, Hyuga Niji, Gaara, Kiba, Shino, Tintin through the people who were watching Kamisato Tsukika's test paper, writing frantically. They quickly copied Kamisato Tsukika's answers on their own test papers. Not long after, they copied the contents of the test paper to the school. Until the feeling of being spied on disappeared, Kamisato Tsukika smiled. He knew that those people had withdrawn their magic powers. Then it was his turn. Oops. Kamisato Tsukika slapped his forehead and pretended to be annoyed. His action and the sound of oops attracted the attention of others, including several examinees who looked over. However, Kamisato Tsukika was not as happy as others. He quickly picked up the eraser beside him, wiped different places on the test paper, and then quickly wrote. He was very fast, and there were not many places to modify. He quickly finished rewriting, then turned the test paper upside down on the table, closed his eyes, and rested. This operation made the few people who had copied Kamisato Yuehua stunned. They quickly looked at their own test papers and read the contents carefully, trying to find mistakes. However, how could it be possible? This content was no different from the heavenly book to them. They didn't know what was right and what was wrong. They always felt that it was smooth, no matter how they read it. But they felt that there was something wrong with it. Now, the four people were dumbfounded. Is this still a game for people? Only Hyuga Niji. He opened his Byakugan and started to check, looking for the place where Kamisato Tsukika had modified. However, after checking it once, Hyuga Niji frowned, because he found that although Kamisato Tsukika had just made some movements, the content was actually unchanged, and it was still the same as before. So what was the meaning of Kamisato Tsukika doing this? Hyuga Niji thought about it and couldn't figure it out, until he saw Inuzuka Kiba erase all the answers with a painful look on his face and began to look for other targets. Hyuga Niji suddenly woke up. He watched carefully with his Byakugan and soon knew the truth of the matter. Amazing. Is this the real genius that Lee said? Hyuga Niji sighed in his heart. He understood everything. Kamisato Yuehua is not a prearranged answer, nor is it the intelligence they want to collect for this exam. There is nothing wrong with Kamisato Yuehua. His identity is a candidate. The reason why so many people in the exam room made wrong judgments can only be said to be coincidence and strength. The coincidence is that Kamisato Yuehua came to participate alone, and the competition system is destined to eliminate Kamisato Yuehua. The strength is that Kamisato Yuehua's intelligence collection ability is extremely strong. Before everyone has noticed, he has already known the purpose of this exam and collected the correct answers. Or Kamisato Yuehua's own cultural level is extremely high. These questions that they think it is impossible to get full marks, Kamisato Yuehua is confident that he can get full marks, so his answers are so smooth. But no matter which situation it is enough to prove Kamisato Yuehua's excellence. And the most important thing is Kamisato Yuehua's counterintelligence collection ability. All of them have been deceived. If they have not rolled their eyes, they must have been deceived now and will look for answers again. So, as Lee said, Kamisato Tsukika is a true genius. Hyuga Niji completely acknowledged Kamisato Tsukika's genius identity at this moment. Not only Hyuga Niji, but also Gaara reacted after a brief panic. This made him look at Kamisato Tsukika's back. He couldn't see through it. He couldn't see through it at all. But no matter what, there is no doubt that Kamisato Tsukika is a genius. However, this made him more excited, and he was looking forward to fighting with a genius like Kamisato Tsukika and kill him. On the podium, all the little movements below were seen by Marino Ibiki. He knew all the cheating methods of Goka 8 Gate. But this was exactly the purpose of his exam, to test these people's cheating ability. It's just that these people's intelligence gathering ability is still too immature. And in the examination room, if he was asked to score these people's intelligence gathering ability, Marino Ibiki thought that none of them were qualified. Even Hyuga Niji and Heiga Hinata, he only gave them 50 points. And this score is given for the sake of the Byakugan. After all, in the field of intelligence collection, the Byakugan is indeed the undisputed king. The ability of perspective is really too important. However, if we put aside the ability of the eyes, whether it is Hyuga Niji or Heiga Hinata, their ability to collect intelligence is not up to standard. No, not everyone is unqualified. There is one person whose intelligence collection ability Marino Ibiki is willing to give 80 points or even higher. Looking at Kamisato Tsukika, who closed her eyes and waited for the announcement of the 10th question, Marino Ibiki looked relieved. He saw all of Kamisato Tsukika's actions just now and knew very well what Kamisato Tsukika did. It can be said that when everyone in the entire examination room was collecting intelligence, only Kamisato Tsukika was collecting intelligence and doing a good job of collecting intelligence. Throughout the entire exam, Kamisato Tsukika's ability and wisdom were absolutely unique. No wonder the third-generation master was so optimistic about him and let him take part in this Chunin exam alone. It seems that this is another true genius like Kakashi and Uchiha Itachi. Ibiki Marino thought of those two people, both of whom were famous geniuses in Konoha, but their endings were not good. One did not reach the height he should have reached, and the other directly defected from the village and became a traitor. So, the real purpose of the third-generation master, transferring Kamisato Tsukika to Umbu and often letting him perform the task of protecting Hokage, was to personally train Kamisato Tsukika to prevent him from going astray? Ibiki Marino couldn't help guessing, and felt that he had probably guessed the truth. I just don't know what Kamisato Tsukika's strength is. However, to be able to receive such treatment, Kamisato Tsukika should have the strength of a Chunin, right? Ibiki Marino couldn't help thinking. However, his guess was still too conservative. Kamisato Tsukika's strength had reached a level that surpassed 99.9% of people in the ninja world. But it is understandable. After all, Kamisato Tsukika's strength is not clear even to the third-generation master. Time passed quickly, and those with strong intelligence-gathering ability had already reached the correct answer. And those with weak intelligence-gathering ability had also been eliminated. As for Naruto, who had not guessed the true intention of the exam, had no intelligence-gathering ability, and did not dare to cheat, he was the only one who was suffering at this time. 45 minutes have passed, and I will announce the 10th question of this exam next. Marino Ibiki's voice attracted everyone's attention, and everyone was waiting for the 10th question he said. However, after Marino Ibiki announced the content of the 10th question, the whole grilled sausage exploded directly. Many people protested, thinking that such rules were not fair at all and had problems. However, Marino Ibiki said that the protest was invalid. Either continue or leave on your own initiative. This kid, many people were shaken in their hearts. In the end, they could only choose to give up on their own initiative. After all, this is just a Chunin exam, and life is not just this Chunin exam. If they fail this exam and have to be Genin for life, then they don't have the courage, and they don't think it's the right choice to continue. So, people gave up on their own initiative one after another. It was not until Naruto's Ninja Way declaration, "Even if I can only be a servant for the rest of my life," sounded in the examination room that this kind of abandonment stopped. Marino Ibiki saw that the rest of the people were stimulated by Naruto and knew that there was no point in continuing. So she had no choice but to immediately announce that the rest of the people had passed. So far, the first round of the Chunin exam has ended. Chapter 59. Kamisato Yuiwa's Arrogance. After the first exam, Mitarashi Anko made a brilliant appearance, and after announcing that he would eliminate more than half of the candidates, he took the rest to the next exam site. After the other examiners left, Marino Ibiki walked down from the podium and began to collect the test papers. The answers on everyone's test paper were almost the same. After all, those who could stay until the end had collected the information he had arranged in advance. Until he saw Naruto's blank test paper, Marino Ibiki was stunned. I didn't expect someone to pass the exam by handing in a blank paper. Thinking of Naruto's firm look just now, Marino Ibiki's mouth corners raised, and he completely remembered Naruto. And when Marino Ibiki picked up Kamisato Tsukika's test paper, he exclaimed, "All of them are correct, and the ideas seem to be clearer than the answers given. He is indeed a promising person of the third generation." Wait, this kid. Looking at the first word of the first question on Kamisato Tsukika's test paper to the 9th word of the 9th question, Marino Ibiki couldn't help but marvel again. Because those words together are... This question is too simple. Death Forest. This is the test site for the second round of the Chunin exam, a place Kamisato Tsukika is quite familiar with. After all, Umbu often moves around here. This place is called the Death Forest, and you will soon be able to experience it yourself. Mitarashi Anko spoke, She looked a little excited. This place is called the Death Forest, and you will soon be able to experience it yourself. In the crowd, Naruto looked disdainful after hearing what Mitarashi Anko said. He twisted his hips and made all kinds of strange movements, then pointed at 943 Mitarashi Anko and continued confidently, "No matter how you scare me, it's useless. I'm not afraid at all." Perhaps it was because he just handed in a blank paper and passed the exam that made Naruto swell up. Now he really doesn't take the Chunin exam seriously at all. But Mitarashi Anko will not spoil Naruto. She smiled, and her eyes narrowed. Swoosh! The kunai was fired before Naruto could react, scratching Naruto's cheek. At the same time, Mitarashi Anko also came behind Naruto in an instant. A spirited kid like you is the most likely to die before others. She put her head close to Naruto's ear, who looked dazed, and gently wiped the blood on Naruto's face, saying the words of pervert in a very gentle tone. "You sprayed out my favorite blood." This made Naruto instantly shudder, and he was directly scared. When Mitarashi Anko was about to continue teasing Naruto, her body suddenly gave a warning, and she stabbed the kunai in her hand behind her reflexively. However, Mitarashi Anko's kunai did not stab, and she stopped her behavior forcibly. "Kunai, give it back to you." A hoarse voice sounded, and the kunai held by the long tongue was handed to Mitarashi Anko from behind. "Thank you, but don't show up behind me with murderous intent if you don't want to die early." Mitarashi Anko smiled and turned her head to look at the person behind her. If this wasn't a woman with a pretty face, Mitarashi Anko would even think she was that person. Her former teacher, Orochimaru, won the Konoha Sannin. "Sorry, I can't help getting excited when I see the blood, and you cut off my favorite hair, so I'm even more excited," the woman said, retracted her tongue, and stepped back, returning to her teammates. During the whole process, everyone present was silent, looking at the perverted examiner and the perverted woman. I always feel that this Chunin exam is not easy. Kamisato Tsukika also watched quietly beside Hinata without saying anything. She just sighed in her heart that Orochimaru is indeed Orochimaru, and he is really perverted. And that tongue is really disgusting. But Kamisato Tsukika still admires him. Orochimaru has amazing courage. After all, he dares to wear such recognizable clothes and show his special tongue in front of Mitarashi Anko, which is enough to show that Orochimaru is not afraid of being discovered. He doesn't take Konoha seriously at all. But this is normal. After all, Konoha now, the aging third generation, can hardly regain its glory. The world-famous Jiraiya travels around the ninja world and is not in Konoha. The elite Jinin Hatake Kakashi, Sarutobi Isuma, Might Guy, and others who support the facade are just children in Orochimaru's eyes. He has the strength to not take Konoha seriously. This is also the reason why Orochimaru is so unscrupulous. With so many interesting people, it seems that the next exam will become very interesting. It's really exciting. Withdrawing her eyes from Orochimaru, Mitarashi Anko suppressed her inner doubts and uneasiness and continued to speak with a smile. As she spoke, she walked back to her previous position and took out a stack of consent forms from her arms. "Then before the second exam officially begins, I will send this to you first. This is the consent form. If you want to participate in the second exam, you must sign your name on the consent form first." Mitarashi Anko spoke, making everyone confused. "Why?" Naruto asked. "Because the next exam will kill people, you need to agree first. Otherwise, it will become my responsibility, ha ha ha." Mitarashi Anko laughed loudly, making countless candidates curse pervert in their hearts. After laughing a few times, Mitarashi Anko stopped, looked at everyone and said, "Can you tell me the rules of this exam?" In short, these are 10 extreme survival games in the wild. 013407230 Phila144290390. In the 10-kilometer diameter area of the Death Forest, you will enter it randomly from 44 entrances and teams and head to the high tower in the center. However, reaching the high tower is not enough to be successful. The qualification conditions are: 1. All team members are present. 2. You have 2 scrolls of heaven and earth in your hands. The number of scrolls is the same, and one will be randomly distributed to each team before departure. As for how to get the other one, it depends on your own ability. Mitarashi Anko said this, looking at Kamisato Tsukika with a playful smile. As the only person who signed up for the Chunin exam in her own name and had the consent of the third Hokage, Mitarashi Anko had long been interested in Kamisato Tsukika. Others were also guided by her gaze to look at Kamisato Tsukika, and suddenly, many people's eyes lit up. This guy took the Chunin exam alone. He had no teammates, so, finally, this exam will take 120 hours, and I will give you 5 full days to compete. Then, collect the consent form in 10 minutes, and those who do not sign will be deemed to have given up the exam in their team. After speaking, Mitarashi Anko handed the notice to Naruto, who was closest to her, and asked Naruto to pass it back. After Kamisato Tsukika received the consent form, she did not hide and sign it alone, but took out a pen and signed her name in front of everyone, and came to Mitarashi Anko, put the consent form on the table, and then stood aside with his eyes closed. This behavior made the ninjas present quiet, and then their eyes on Kamisato Tsukika changed. This guy is very confident. Someone couldn't help but speak to his teammates. Shunli Yuehua's behavior just now was tantamount to telling everyone that I didn't intend to give up. I just want to take the exam alone. If you have the ability, come and mess with me. I hope he can still be so confident after the exam begins. Someone looked at Shun Li Yuehua coldly with disdain. Someone else looked at him with burning eyes and couldn't wait. Humph, this kid better pray not to meet me, otherwise I won't show mercy. What an arrogant kid. I really hope his scroll is different from ours. I didn't like him when I was in the written exam room before. Wait, he will have a hard time after entering the exam room. Many genins have already started to whisper, looking at Kamisato Yuehua with unfriendly eyes, and can't help but want to teach Kamisato Yuehua a lesson. Some cruel genins even showed bloodthirsty smiles, treating Kamisato Yuehua as their next prey and preparing to hunt Kamisato Yonghua in the Death Forest. After all, how powerful can such a kid who just graduated from the ninja school be? Even if he is really a genius, if he can't be beaten in a single fight, can't 3 people beat him in a gang fight? Some people are unhappy with Kamisato Yuehua, and naturally some people are worried about Kamisato Yuehua. Ino looked at Kamisato Yuehua, who was alone, thinking in her heart that she must convince Shikamaru and Chai, let Kamisato Tsukika join their team, and the 4 of them acted together. In addition to being unhappy and worried, the 7th and 8th teams prayed in their hearts to meet Kamisato Tsukika. If we meet Kamisato Tsukika, we can only hand over the scroll. But fortunately, even if we are unlucky and really meet him, at least there will be no danger, and he will not kill us. Uchiha Sasuke thought in his heart as he looked at Kamisato Tsukika. Even though he has mastered the 2 Tomo Sharingan, even though he has learned Chidori, even though he has never fought with Kamisato Tsukika after graduation, Uchiha Sasuke still knows that he is not Kamisato Tsukika's opponent. The simplest proof of this conclusion is what Hatake Kakashi said himself. Kamisato Tsukika's strength is not inferior to his. And Uchiha Sasuke was crushed every time he sparred with Hatake Kakashi during special training. Just avoid Tsukika later. I don't want to test how strong he is. On the other side, Inuzuka Kiba also spoke to Aburame Shino and Hinata. Although he did not see Kamisato Tsukika killing Kuroki Raiga with his own eyes, Inuzuka Kiba believed that Yuhi Kurenai and Hinata would not lie to them. Since Yuhi Kurenai and Hinata both said that Kamisato Tsukika killed Kuroki Raiga with her strength, then it must be Kamisato Tsukika who killed Kuroki Raiga. I look forward to fighting him. Gaara looked at Kamisato Yuehua indifferently. He was tricked by Kamisato Yuehua in the first match, which made him impressed. As expected of Yuehua, I really want to fight him to see how far he has practiced. Rock Lee clenched his fists and looked excited. After knowing the rules of this exam, he became excited. Fighting is something he likes and enjoys very much, especially fighting with geniuses. And Kamisato Yuehua has always been a genius he wants to fight with, because since the last time they fought, he has grown a lot, he can already open the 5th gate of the 8 inner gates. So Rock Lee can't wait to show his training results in front of Kamisato Tsukika, and also want to regain the victory from Kamisato Tsukika. The last fight he lost. Interesting, but that's all. Even Orochimaru noticed Kamisato Tsukika, but he just noticed it. He only had Uchiha Sasuke in his eyes. To be precise, there was only Uchiha Sasuke's body. Orochimaru coveted Uchiha Sasuke's body. 10 minutes passed quickly, and the scattered genins gathered again. In the past 10 minutes, many people had a fierce ideological struggle, constantly hesitating between participating and quitting. Although they were lucky enough to pass the first exam, the elimination rate of the second exam was too high, and more than half of the people were destined to be eliminated. In addition, this exam was accompanied by life-threatening dangers, and one might be in it if he was not careful. This is just a Chunin exam. Is it really worth risking your life to participate? It's about life and death, which is something they have to consider. But in the end, everyone still chose to participate. After all, isn't a ninja someone who walks on the edge of death and dances on the tip of a knife? Since you have chosen to become a ninja and want to become a Chunin and have signed up for the Chunin exam, you must be aware of death. Just like the scar-headed examiner before, some things have to be practiced at the risk of one's life. In these 10 minutes, Ino also successfully persuaded Shikamaru and tried to team up with Kamisato Tsukika. But Ino's intention was rejected by Kamisato Tsukika. From the beginning to the end, Kamisato Tsukika never thought about teaming up with other teams. Firstly, Kamisato Tsukika didn't need it at all. Secondly, Kamisato Tsukika also had her own things to do. He wanted to test Orochimaru's strength in this exam and collect information about Orochimaru. After collecting all the consent forms, Mitarashi Anko arranged for each team to get the scroll of their own team, and Kamisato Tsukika got a scroll with the word. After distributing the scrolls, with Mitarashi Anko's order, the 27 teams were taken to different entrances by the 27 examiners. The entrance where Kamisato Tsukika was located was entrance number 9. At 12:30 noon, the exam officially began, and the doors at the 27 entrances were opened at the same time. Almost in an instant, all the teams rushed into the Death Forest. This exam was destined to be a battle and bloody exam. In order to successfully obtain the scrolls they needed and safely reach the central tower, at least one team of enemies had to be eliminated. Therefore, they needed to enter the Death Forest quickly and set traps as soon as possible. Chapter 60. Orochimaru the Pervert. At the moment the door was opened, almost all the teams rushed into the Death Forest. They wanted to be one step ahead and take the lead. However, Kamisato Tsukika did not do that. He walked slowly and leisurely and did not go straight. Instead, he turned left after entering the Death Forest with his own destination. That was the location of Team 7. Kamisato Tsukika activated the soul perception and easily found Naruto Sasuke and Little Sakura. The reason for looking for Team 7 was also very simple. It was not to seize the scrolls in their hands, but because it would not be long before Orochimaru would appear there. Instead of aimlessly looking for Orochimaru in the Death Forest, it is better to wait for Orochimaru to take the bait at his target. Rustle, rustle, rustle. When he walked to a certain place, Kamisato Tsukika heard a slight sound of leaves shaking in his ears. The sound was very subtle, mixed with the sound of the wind blowing the trees, and it was difficult for people to feel abnormal. But Kamisato Tsukika was not an ordinary person, not to mention that his strong physique makes his senses more sensitive. The strength of his soul also makes it easier for him to concentrate and detect subtle changes around him. Just 2 months in Umbu was enough for Kamisato Tsukika to discover the poor hiding. After all, the other party is just a genin. Although he has the strength of Chunin, Chunin is not a powerful existence. On a tree not far from Kamisato Tsukika, the 3 hidden ninjas looked happy at Kamisato Tsukika, who was still walking slowly in front and below. I didn't expect our luck to be so good that we actually found this kid. One of them whispered in an excited tone. I hope he has the scroll we need so that we can go to the tower as quickly as possible to complete the exam. Another person also spoke up. In his heart, the scroll in Kamisato Tsukika's hand was a must-have. The last person didn't say anything, but his thoughts were the same as his two teammates. He had already regarded Kamisato Yuehua as a sure thing. At a certain moment, a scream came from a distance, and it sounded not far from here. Obviously, the competition in the Death Forest has begun, and a team has already had trouble. Kamiri Yuehua also knew that the first team in his hand was the 3 people from Team 8 who eliminated a team of genin. Take action! Seeing Kamisato Yuehua stop and turn a look into the distance, the 3 ambushed genins' eyes lit up, and he decisively seized the opportunity to attack Kamisato Yuehua. 30, it must be said that they were still quite alert. Even when 3 people faced Kamisato Yuehua alone, they did not appear openly, but hid and waited for the right time to attack. But their vigilance was obviously not high, or they were too young to be patient. Kamisato Yuehua was a person, and it was true that she was the easiest to bully among all the teams. However, how could someone who dared to sign up for the Chunin exam in his own name and got Konoha's permission be an ordinary person? Such people are either people like little Naruto who are more nervous and impulsive and do things without considering the consequences, or they're extremely confident in their own strength and do not think that anyone can threaten them in this exam. Even though Kamisato Yuehua has not shown her strength so far, from Kamisato Yuehua judging from the performance of Chunin since the exam, Kamisato Yuehua is more likely to be the second type. However, they still went up without any information about Kamisato Yuehua. Of course, it may also be because they were too anxious and afraid that if Kamisato Yuehua was the first type, others would take the lead. After all, compared with competing with other teams, 3 against 1 is undoubtedly more reassuring. Facing the sneak attack of the 3, Kamisato Yuehua calmly turned back and stood still. When the 3 saw this, even if they had doubts in their hearts, they could not stop and could only attack Kamisato Yuehua more decisively. One of the 3 people is good at close combat, so after the other threw a kunai to cover, the 2 quickly approached Kamisato Yuehua. During this process, Kamisato Yuehua did not move at all, until 2 people came in front of him. One of them swung his fist fiercely at Kamisato Tsukika. Bang! He turned sideways, punched, and the swung fist genin fell directly to the ground, hunched over and rolled his eyes, and had lost consciousness. Kamisato Tsukika punched and kicked immediately, and the other genin who was close to him flew backwards, hit the tree heavily, and vomited blood. The battle process was too fast. In the eyes of the remaining genin, his 2 teammates rushed forward, and then one fell directly to the ground, and the other flew back instantly. He was not even ready for the battle, and was still thinking about how he would cooperate with his teammates later, and the 2 teammates had already been solved. This made the remaining genin's face turn pale, his body began to tremble, and sweat broke out. At this moment, he didn't know that his team had hit a wall. This is our scroll. Please let us go. The genin who lost his will to resist because his teammates lay down too quickly shuddered when he saw Kamisato Tsukika looking at him, and then took out the scroll without hesitation and spoke to Kamisato Tsukika tremblingly. It could be seen that he was really scared, and his eyes were full of fear. Seeing this, Kamisato Tsukika walked over and took the other party scroll and ignored the 3 genins who had no vision and was about to leave. In fact, Kamisato Tsukika could have killed them. After all, before this exam, everyone had signed the consent form. But these 3 genins are Konoha shinobi. After thinking about it, Kamisato Tsukika let it go. After all, when they attacked him, they didn't use kunai but fists, for the sake of being Konoha shinobi, to spare their lives. Thank goodness you're from Konoha. After Kamisato Tsukika took the scroll, she left after saying something and soon disappeared into the depths of the forest. When the genin saw Kamisato Tsukika leave, he collapsed on the ground with a look of relief in his eyes. Not only Kamisato Tsukika, but also Team 7 on the other side encountered the first wave of attacks they encountered. But their enemy was not a team. Like Kamisato Tsukika, Song was alone. As for why they were alone, we can only say that their team was very confident and took a split action to collect the scroll. After discovering Team 7, the ninja took the opportunity when Naruto went to the toilet alone to take Naruto down and tie him up, and then changed into Naruto's appearance to approach Sasuke and little Sakura planning to catch Team 7 in one fell swoop. However, he still underestimated Uchiha Sasuke's IQ. Without little Sakura noticing anything, Uchiha Sasuke keenly noticed the abnormality of the fake Naruto. After a battle, the genin of Rain Shinobi Village was injured by Sasuke and gave up decisively and quickly left the battlefield. If the three of us are separated, even our companions can't trust us. Just like just now, the enemy can approach us through the transformation technique. After the battle, Team 7 moved to another place to rest. At this time, the three of them sat together. Uchiha Sasuke took the initiative to speak and summarize the
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.